Nixon, freshman, back to receive for Oklahoma State. He's got a crease, and the freshman breaks a tackle, keeps his feet, and away he goes. Nixon is in. Touchdown.
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
They might go for it, and they do. 4th down and 5. Chapin and Baylor. His throw for Baldwin has a first down across the 40 and then some. Oh, the speed! 70 yards! Sparks off his shoes for Monterey Baldwin.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Uiagalelei has plenty of time here. Hasn't had this luxury offense tonight and delivers down the field. Shipley makes the catch and scores. What a drive.
Sikkim 365 Radio is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Rodgers, the catch made. Touchdown. Rufus Harvey gets that right hand in.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Number 1 looking for its first lead of the night. Edwards. And touchdown, Georgia. And number 1 finally has the lead.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And so much to digest and also chew on and discuss from the college football weekend. I just noticed one of the first inside the chat room. I'm not surprised is Wet Blanket, a huge Oklahoma State fan who put up his power rankings last week. That doesn't mean they always go according to plan, but great to see everybody today in the chat room with much more to get to. And some teams are in a free fall. Some teams are on fire. And we have coaching searches being added now to the list of college football earlier than we have ever seen before. Plus, of course, some injury updates. Good afternoon, 365 Sports, and also Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak here in the studio, 101 Elm Avenue. We have some sort, I don't know if it's breaking news, but it's a story that really just popped recently that Craig sent us. And Paul, this is the one where Joseph Hoyt, who covers SMU for the Dallas Morning News, with this story that just came down, a development, the new era of college football. Multiple SMU players plan to sit out the rest of the season with the intention to preserve their redshirt year and enter the transfer portal. Multiple SMU players, staff members with knowledge of the situation said. And so that's kind of like a right now story. SMU, of course, a program that has had some success in recent years. Now their coach is at TCU, and what a weekend it was for them and Sonny Dykes, and that's yet another part of our discussion here in the first part of the show.
Hey, I don't know if this reflects on Rhett Lashley or not, but this is just the new reality of college football, that we're 4 games in for most teams, if not one more. But so you've played in 4 games. You can redshirt now, so guys are doing it. It's kind of strange that 4 guys are doing it on the same team at the same time. But even still, if there were no transfer windows, or whatever there are, then this would probably happen anyway. But yeah, it's kind of weird. It all kind of came down at once.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't close to the biggest story going on right now. This is just kind of something that happened in the last hour or so. But yeah, it's just a sign of guys saving their redshirt years and that's pretty much it. I don't think it's any reflection on Rhett Lashley, because by the names, it didn't sound like it was anybody that really matters in the grand scheme of things as far as like them moving forward this season. So, I mean, you'll see this probably pop up more and more often. And I saw, reading some of the comments of, until you classify these guys as employees, they should be free to go wherever they want to go, whenever they want to go there. And, that can get into all the different arguments about student athletes and their rights and everything else. But given the red shirt rules, this is what you can do and cannot do based on your eligibility. And so these guys see that they're not going to be playing a whole lot of meaningful football at SMU right now. And I'm going to save my whatever year, my freshman year, and go play that somewhere else and hopefully make more of a mark. So this is kind of the way the system is set up. And if you don't like it, well, that's the system for you. It's totally allowable to do right now.
All right, there's a lot to get to, including game day. Finally, we'll acknowledge what KU is doing. But by the way, TCU took care of their side of the business with that win, and it was an onslaught against Oklahoma. We discussed that quite a bit during our pregame. They were explosive early. Coaching changes. Where do you want to start? With the weekend's winners, losers, and of course that could also include that a couple of more big-name programs are looking, even though one has been really struggling for a while, looking for new head coaches already, and it's just the early part of October.
I don't think it's too much of a shock about Colorado. I'm a little surprised about Wisconsin this early in the season, but, though the interesting thing to think about Wisconsin is that Barry Alvarez isn't the athletic director anymore. So no one has to genuflect at that altar and be a coach that was under Barry Alvarez now, or a player necessarily. I do think Jim Leonhard is the guy that they really want to grab the reins and take that job. He's turned down multiple other jobs to stay at Wisconsin, where he played and is very comfortable, so wants to live there. So I would think he's probably the favorite for the job, but knowing that Barry Alvarez isn't the AD and nothing necessarily has to come off the Wisconsin tree is different. Colorado was just a matter of time about, how long do you have to decide, how you're going to negotiate that buyout, because that's not a great roster that Colorado has, especially for a Power 5 FBS school. That's not – they're just not doing anything. They're bland.
You've had Carl Durrell's name on the list along with Scott Frost, among others, and they're getting – clipped off left and right now.
I've been saying this since like week one. I mean, when they played TCU, and that's why I said I didn't know how good TCU was, because you look at their schedule, and I hadn't really known how to stack them up, because the most I had watched of them was Colorado, and Colorado sucks. I mean, bad. I mean, they're bad. And, that was my big indicator, just kind of seeing some of the reviews coming off of that game and seeing how they played in that game and seeing just sort of what the temperature was. And then it just stayed the same, if not got worse in some cases since then. That was inevitable, Carl Durrell being out. It was simply a matter of, would they pay the buyout? Well, I guess we see now these buyouts really don't mean anything. And in the past, you could say they didn't either. But I think that's one where everybody Boulder had to look around and go, like, do we care about our football program? Then we're going to have to pony up money and get a change really quickly here, because this is going really badly. They were arguably the worst Power 5 team in the country. So I think it was smart for them to go ahead and get out there and get this thing started and just try to turn the tide as best you can for the remainder of the regular season, because I don't know really, other than saving some money, what keeping Carl Durrell around was going to do. You're just going to sink further as a program and become less attractive, quite frankly. So I think that one was, like I said, inevitable for Wisconsin. And Paul Chryst, I mean, Jim Leonhard seems like the guy who could very well win the job just by, holding on to the interim tag and then, having the Badgers perform well. But, I know that that's also somebody that immediately when that came down was like, Nebraska's going to be mad because, perhaps they're interested in Jim Leonhard, or also because of the fact that they're two really similar programs. They both red and white wearing Big Ten, Midwestern type style, run the football. Like, I know Nebraska's not necessarily that in your mind anymore, but, they're very similar profile-wise. So I think
they are, because Barry Alvarez played at Nebraska.
Yeah, and built it up that way.
And then he took Wisconsin and did it into the mold of Bob Devaney and Tom Austin.
So now it's kind of crowded for the same type of guy, you would think. Yeah. But that was kind of surprising. But I think when you look at Wisconsin and what they're known for, and the fact that they are so far away from being a running football team at this point, especially after Saturday, that sounded alarm bells. And so I guess they probably thought, hey, we got it's no hurdles as far as not being able to pay this or pay that. We can do it. We can go ahead and put our names in the pool and shoot. We have 7-8 games to get a tryout for this guy who we think might be a really good candidate. Why not go ahead and do that right now? Because worst case, we keep the same guy in place and do this in a couple months anyway. So it was a little bit surprising that they jumped in, but I don't think it was totally shocking based on some of the Big Ten and Wisconsin folks that I was reading.
We will hear from those who cover both Colorado and Wisconsin. Brian Howell today at 3:45. He covers Colorado. Mike Heller up in Wisconsin. He covers both the Packers and also Wisconsin. He'll be with us today at 5. Tony Casillas on many things, including it's Texas OU week, and Oklahoma just got embarrassed in a lot of ways in Fort Worth, and they have Texas who beat West Virginia. Tony Casillas today at 4:30. We'll have Ricky Thompson on Baylor and Oklahoma State today at 4. Sam Mays, who covers Oklahoma State, will be with us tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Plus, we'll talk Cowboys with David Hellman, Paul's Top 5. All right, let's go through some of the injury stories, and you're going to have to bounce around here, Garrett. Let's start with C.J. Donaldson. The running back from West Virginia, he went out. There's a statement from West Virginia that he, in fact, is okay, that he is he's able to fly back to West Virginia from Morgantown. There's another one, I believe. It might be from him. I'm okay, everyone. I will not be on my phone too much. Thanks for all the love and support. That's good news. And, of course, he's probably trying to rest. And because it was a scary moment, the carted off, the thumbs up, you never know. Very, very well done by Texas and all the facilities and medical staff they have. And West Virginia even said thank you for that.
Well, they have 10 days before they play Baylor. So.
That's right.
Yeah, and he's one of their better players. There's not a doubt about that. Whether it's Neil Brown coaching there the next few years or whoever, were to slide in a hot seat scenario, which I think is it seems to me to really have cooled down quite a bit now at this point. But he's one of their bright spots. Like, no matter what you're looking at it as the present or the future, Donaldson's one of those guys that you feel like you can, certainly lean on as far as building up the program and getting yourself some wins. So that's really disappointing for them that he's going to probably miss some time, you would think. But yeah, it's a head deal, so you don't quite know. I mean, Tay McWilliams has missed like 3 weeks for Baylor, and that you thought that would be like a one-game thing at most, and he's been gone for nearly a month. So I don't know what's going on there, and hopefully that's not the case for C.J. Donaldson. But yeah, a good bit of time on the schedule to rest up and heal up, so that's good for him and good for the Mountaineers. But glad he's all right.
Quinn Ewers, of course, did not play against West Virginia, Texas, Oklahoma this week, and you would think it appears as if. Well, of course, we'll see Steve Sarkisian and Texas making that decision. You would think that Quinn Ewers, if it's not this week, they might look at TCU tape and go, hey, we may be able to wait another week. But, again, that's the emotional rivalry that is. I haven't seen anything on Dylan Gabriel other than the fact we saw him get knocked out of the game on what was called a targeting play. And then without him, who do they have?
Well, you saw it on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean,
nobody.
I'm sorry for the young man that had to come into those situations. Alabama lost Bryce Young, had a huge lead against Arkansas. Nick Saban today during his press conference saying he's day-to-day. They have Texas A&M coming up this weekend. How about Jalen Milroe, former star from Texas, took off on what looked like almost a Vince Young type moment. I know we mentioned Vince Young and Richardson at Florida, but, I mean, he looked the part. And Alabama ended up becoming a running team in their win against Arkansas. Max Johnson went out in that A&M game.
Yeah, he did.
Haynes King came in, had a touchdown, but also a pick six. Mississippi State just slaughtered A&M. It's slaughtered may not be the word, but they got it to them. They got on them really quickly.
Yeah,
42-24.
Yeah, like you said, we talked about OUTC. We really didn't talk about that very much on Saturday.
We will. Yeah,
and we need to dive deeper into A&M too, and because there's some details and some additional things to get into with some of this. Now, I just looked it up. Dylan Gabriel is in concussion protocol, that's according to Jeff Levy. So Davis Bevel is their guy, Pitt transfer. And you saw how that worked on Saturday. And I can only imagine with a full week to prepare, Texas will be geared up for Davis Bevel. But I'm sure that Oklahoma, whether Dylan Gabriel's fine or not, will play the game of, well, we'll see. And he's getting better and, try to be like basically Texas has been with Quinn Ewers the last couple of weeks as far as his injury goes. Like, we'll see. I would think Quinn Ewers has to be back by this weekend, right? I would think he is. Dylan Gabriel, I don't know, man. That was that was all bad. A lot of credit to TCU, but this is the first unranked Red River shootout since 1998. So
yeah, there are 4 games in the Big 12 this week because Baylor and West Virginia are off. There are 4 games this week, and the one game that is among 2 teams that are unranked is Texas and Oklahoma. It's like that's where they are or where they have been to start this season. Jalen Carter out a week or 2 with a knee injury for Georgia, star defensive tackle. Sevyn Banks, LSU defensive back, out 5 to 6 weeks. So a spinal cord bruise against Auburn, and they had to come back to win that game, and they did.
I'm not making light of that injury, but, man, LSU looked good, didn't they? Oh, man.
Yeah, they're starting to hit their rhythm a little bit. Trey Emery looked good in the backfield. You were able to get some good plays on the defense. They're starting to come into their rhythm.
They got some work to do, but they're getting better.
How puckered up were you when it was 14-0 or 7, whatever it was, Auburn?
I was about to lose my mind.
Yeah, okay.
And then, all of a sudden, LSU kind of flipped the switch, like, oh, well, here's the team I thought you
Get the mic a little closer.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. There we go.
Yeah, you shouldn't. Here's the rule. You don't lose to coaches who are going to get fired.
There you go. There you go.
You know who violate or teams that just fired their coach, and Pitt violated that rule this week.
They did. they did. All right, so how about this? In the AP and the coaches poll, the top 16 teams were identical. I've never seen that before. 1 through 16 were the same in both the Associated Press and the coaches poll. I have never ever seen that, especially when you had Kentucky and NC State and Wake Forest going up and down a little bit. All of them identical. Kansas in. They should be 17th in one poll, 19th in another. TCU in. 17th in one poll, 18th in another. Baylor drops to 22, and the coaches out in the AP. Kansas State up to 20. They move up quite a bit into both polls to 20 in each one after they beat Texas Tech at home.
I think Baylor's still a top 25-ish type team, but they have to go out and prove it. That was not a prove it showing on Saturday. I think the thing is you leave that with a really bad taste in your mouth because they could have, and they just did not perform as well as their opponent did, and did not perform in as many key opportune moments as their opponent did, and yet still there they were, still with a fighting chance that, deep into that game. But credit to the Cowboys, and Baylor's got to kind of look in the mirror a little bit and decide, like, they could very well be 5-0 right now, and they could also be like 2-3. So I don't know what they are. I know that they're good enough to be 5-0, but they're also mistake-ridden enough to be 2-3, and they're kind of in the middle of that right now, and that's just being young. But I hear all this stuff about them being young and then being young and then being young. Yes, they are young at wide receiver. We talked about that all offseason. We've asked Dave Aranda about why they didn't go grab anybody in the transfer portal, and he's addressed that. There's other spots where they were young too, but like they're losing because of special teams. You know how many difference in yardage special teams were returned?
156 yards difference, which were really the 2 kickoff returns because they pretty much nullified each other on interception returns and also on punt returns, not much each. But 150, that's a field and a half that they gave up on special teams advantage.
Yeah, and that's basically how they made their mark under Matt Rule and then Dave Aranda last year. And it's like this not even a factor anymore. And actually it is. It's a bad factor in their games now at this point. So that's very concerning to me because that cost you the game in so many ways. It wasn't the only reason, but it was a significant reason why you lost that game was your special teams versus theirs. And so I know Dave Aranda talked about that. And we'll see with the bye week what they're able to do. But, they've got a lot of work to do to figure out if they want to be a 10-game winning type of team, which they're capable of, but they'd have to, basically not lose at this point, or if they want to be, like, barely bowl eligible, because that's entirely possible if they play the way they did on Saturday.
Yeah,
so.
And then the league, again, there's no easy outs, including, I know Oklahoma's kind of flailing right now, but eventually they're gonna beat Oklahoma against a couple teams.
Man.
Maybe,
that
we'll
defense,
see.
bro. That defense,
but everyone was excited.
Lincoln
Lincoln Riley was there. They would be just fine without him.
Yeah.
And it looks ugly.
But for Baylor, we've talked about the inexperience at wide receiver. Kind of strangely enough, the guy with the most experience is Gavin Holmes, technically, because he's a 6-year senior.
Yeah.
But I said this in the postgame show the other day. He's the least experienced 6-year player in maybe the history of college football because he's been injured so much And he had a game the other day that he will want to take back for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Had a drop that would have been a first down, had a drop that would have been a huge play, and that one's maybe excusable, and then had a drop at the end of the game that was an interception that kind of sealed it for Oklahoma State.
You know what I saw from Oklahoma State when I was just early in the game? There's a team that came in angry, chip on their shoulder. You think they hadn't heard about that goal line play in the Big 12 championship game? Kind of reminded me of what we saw early with Brigham Young. Again, Baylor had a chance in that game, multiple chances. But I get the feeling that perhaps that edge that Baylor had last year, that grit that Eric Mateos talks about a lot, they have a few people that have that right back against them. And I don't like the way Baylor responded to that, even when they had a chance to get back in the game later on in the game.
I got off track of the point I was trying to make. You hear all the time about the youth on this team, and that's part of what's kind of dysfunctional right now is not that they're dysfunctional. It's just that they're not, veteran guys who kind of know the deal and know all that. But there's a lot of veterans on this team, guys.
Sure.
Like a lot of freaking veterans. Like the guys talking about in the post game, Connor Galvin is a fifth-year offensive lineman. I don't know. I understand that, you don't have like 7 draft pick veterans, but you do have guys who are going to go to the NFL. You do have plenty of juniors and seniors who are actually older than they normally would be because of the COVID rules. And I'm hearing about the youth. I don't know. Like for them to come out and not have energy at home against a top 10 team coming off of a win on the road, and you could go to 2-0 in Big 12 play, and you got a sold-out crowd, and it's Saturday afternoon, and it's sunshine. Like, there was no reason for them to not have any energy on Saturday. Like, absolutely none. It wasn't an early kick. It wasn't bad weather. It wasn't, like, Albany rolling in. There was no reason to not have energy at the beginning of that game, and yet somehow they didn't. And that's got to change, and I don't know how it does, but that has to change.
Oklahoma State has 4 seniors on offense. They're young, too, but guess what? They played a fantastic game, even with opportunities early for Baylor and even some late, which was surprising because at one point it was 19-3 and it looked like it was pretty much over, but the kick return was incredible. And then, of course, they just couldn't punch it in. There's one play on the Richard Reese 4th down play. It wasn't 4th and goal. It was like 4th and a yard or two where Oklahoma State came up and made an incredible play to knock him down on the perimeter. Richard Reese, or you have to look at cutting, sticking your left leg in the ground and going right. He's a freshman. He's been able to outrun people all his life. He didn't get to do it on that play, and Oklahoma State with a huge stand there, almost on the edge to the left, which was not game-winning, but was a big-time play for Oklahoma State. I listened to part of Mike Gundy in the postgame. He was just looking at the numbers, all the numbers, and Oklahoma State, the 156 yards in special teams was incredible. And not just one kick return, but 2. And I'm one of those that if you give up special teams coverage yards, I think that is an edge I think that's an emotion. And Oklahoma State had a chip on their shoulder. Kansas State wins. TCU blows out Oklahoma. That was for me because Oklahoma has not only won a bunch of Big 12 titles. They've always been the dude. Texas had their opportunity of one. Oklahoma State, TCU, Baylor, whoever. My God, TCU just embarrassed Oklahoma on Saturday.
Yeah, it's Sonny Dykes with a lot of great toys that Gary Patterson put together over the last few years. I mean, it's like, what would Sonny Dykes look like in his home, state of Texas with these? I mean, like he was at Cal, so he was surrounded by great athletes out there as well. But like, what could he do in like the homeland? With like these up tempo, spread, trained guys from day one and. TCU recruited relatively well over the years. They were never like crazy good in recruiting under Gary Patterson, but they've always had athletes. We know that. And man, to have Sonny Dykes now with those athletes in his hands and Garrett Riley's hands, and to see them just demolish Oklahoma the way that they did is mightily impressive. I mean, I was not expecting that in any. I mean, I heard plenty of people say why they were choosing TCU before this game. I debated on it, and I actually had to weigh it. Okay, I could definitely see that, and I just thought no. Brent Venables has to rally the troops here. Like they can't. This is Oklahoma, right? They can't turn around and get beat by TCU after that. Like they've got to rally the troops after the K-State loss. And not only did they not, but like one of the things that was really confusing to me was the number of analysts that were talking about like Max Duggan as though he was some pocket passing quarterback. And I guess it's because they looked at his stats going into this game for this year and they see like not a lot of rushing yards. But if you've watched him, you know he can run the football. And so that was my grave concern was, okay, Adrian Martinez ran all over you. And here comes Max Duggan, who is capable of running all over you, so surely you're not going to allow that. Surely, if anything, you're going to stop the quarterback run. And Max Duggan just ran all over him. And, I mean, it'd be one thing if, there was no talent on the Oklahoma defense, but that's not the case. And even if that was somewhat of the case, it's still Brent freaking Venables, man. Like, you hired him because of what he did defensively at Clemson for so many years. And instead, that was basically the feeling that you had when Brent Venables was a DC at OU and they were wanting to run him out of town. But worse, because it was absolutely embarrassing like they haven't been embarrassed in a long time. So, man, I mean, I know the Gabriel thing played into it sort of, but that was not why they got blown out.
No, that was headed bad.
And it's just a matter of, like, how bad does it get before they kind of show some life? Because, man, with Texas coming up, that could get really ugly.
K-State took care of their business. Very competitive game. Tech kept staying around like they did against Texas. But how about Kansas winning again, unbeaten, and they won in a different way this time. They won in a defensive-type struggle in a turf war. They didn't have to score 35 or 40 points. Iowa State had something to do with that, but they won the game, and it's a great story in college football right now.
That was why I thought Iowa State would win the game, because I thought they would be the team that kind of stymied the Kansas offense. But Lance Leipold, credit to him, figured out a way to play Iowa State's game and beat him at it. And that's why he's up for a bunch of jobs. Real quick thought on TCU. The cliche, Smokey, is that teams take on the personality of their head coach, right? And I don't think that's true for any player more than it was for Max Duggan. Gary Patterson was real high-strung, and then Max Duggan, when things would go rough, he got really high-strung, right? And there were times, you remember Jerry Kill, like, holding the sides of his helmet and, like, telling the kid, like, hey, just calm down. Calm down. It's okay. Like, trying to you're the quarterback. You've got to take a beat a little bit here and take some deep breaths. Well, now Sonny Dykes is easygoing. So guess what? Max Duggan's a little calmer now, right? He's easygoing. And I think that is one of the reasons that he's been so successful the last couple of weeks, is because his personality needs a guy like Sonny Dykes.
He's also a physical runner. He's not just one that will outrun you, which he can. He also will break a few arm tackles if, in fact, he has the space to do so.
No, yeah, he can run the football, and Oklahoma learned that. I just don't know how they didn't know that going into it, and if they did, they couldn't stop it. That's even more concerning, and he was just one of many problems that they faced. So, yeah, Oklahoma's got some things to look in the mirror about, and even with Dylan Gabriel, you're like, yeah, they can go beat the heck out of Texas. Like, I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen on Saturday. But to Iowa State, that was a horrific loss. Like, that was a bad loss. 16 yards rushing, fellas.
Oh, I know.
16 yards rushing for the Cyclones. That was just a terrible, terrible loss, and they had multiple opportunities to try and win that football game and couldn't make field goals and just couldn't get it done. So, Kansas wins 14-11, and it's great for them. It's great for Lawrence that they'll be getting College game day, but that is a abysmal loss for Matt Campbell and the Cyclones, and they had no business really losing that game, but they just played so poorly in certain areas that they lost. And I don't think that they're like a horrific team, but they got to really look in the mirror in a major way.
There are some teams, Craig and Paul, in the Big 12 who, if they're not careful, they're looking at something that no one expected. They're looking at, like, wait a minute, we're going to have to scratch and claw to get to a bowl game and maybe beat somebody on the road or someone that you're not expected to beat, the way things are set up. Kansas, I saw this on they're now hitting the meat of their schedule.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, that's true. But, boy, they're a fun story right now. So who is it? I think Oklahoma State, I had them pick second in the Big 12. One thing I want to say about Baylor as well. Remember last year about how they had that power wide zone running game and they would just beat you up with it? We saw some of that against Brigham Young. It didn't quite work. I know Reese is having a nice start. Two carries for Squirrel. Man, they don't have the banger. I don't think you have to have the 220-pound banger, but they missed Tay McWilliams. Oklahoma State averaged 3.6 yards per carry. Baylor 3.7. The difference was that Richardson and Gordon finished their runs. Richardson's a load, but Spencer Sanders, who is Tired of hearing about how he gives the ball up too much against Baylor. Wasn't perfect, but he was fantastic and probably the difference maker. Nothing against Shapen, but, man, I thought Spencer Sanders managed the game and was very efficient.
Yeah.
And he got away with his legs again.
Yeah, they couldn't get a hand on him, and that was a bit disconcerting just how unable they were to try and, be able to bring him down. But, yeah, I mean, that's what he can do. That he played a really good game. He threw a couple of near picks, I thought, early on, and I said to Paul, I said, he's going to throw an interception, and it was just a matter of time, and he did. He just only threw one, though, so that was good. That was progress, but he still threw the one. But overall, yeah, I mean, minus that, he played really well. And I think in the Big 12, looking at power rankings off the top of my head, I mean, yeah, you got to have TCU right there. You got to have KU. I mean, I believe in KU, but only to I do feel like they're about to start experiencing some other results. Like I don't think they're going to go 0-7 the rest of the way or anything like that. But I do think that they're about to face some teams that will make field goals to beat them in a 14-11 game. Like that. I think that there's some more capable teams that won't fall all over themselves like Iowa State did this past weekend. But I'm not trying to take away from them at all. I just think the schedule is going to ramp up in a major way. But they have to be Kansas and TCU have to be right there at the top. I think K-State's got to be right there in the mix. And then I think there's a second tier that's kind of who is it? Is it Baylor? Is it Texas? Is it Texas Tech? Who do you want to put in there? But yes, the two Kansas schools and Oklahoma State. And I'd put Oklahoma State at number 1 right now.
The odds in Vegas at Caesars Sportsbook, we have to break here. Oklahoma State plus 250, Kansas State plus 320, Texas at plus 400, TCU plus 450, and Baylor at plus 550, and then a massive drop-off even for Kansas at plus 1,200 down through Oklahoma Tech, Iowa State, West Virginia. We will have Brian Howell around the corner, but not next. We come back. We'll look at the chat room, also the text line, and a few other nuggets. College football's weekend. Looking at it, looking back, and looking ahead. There's a Wednesday game this week. I think SMU and UCF play Wednesday. This is 365 Sports, Sikkim 365 Radio.
During Jeep Adventure Days, Allen Samuels in Waco is celebrating with an incredible lineup of 2022 models like the Grand Cherokee L, Renegade, Wrangler, and the Wrangler 4xe. These vehicles bring power to plow through any obstacles or the smooth, peaceful ride you'd expect from a Jeep. Jeep SUVs are also known for their design and technology. The Grand Cherokee L even brings you extended seating with a third row. Come see what Allen Samuels can offer you and your family and find the Jeep SUV that fits your lifestyle.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott, covering Conroe and Houston, 936-756-7717 or cam.heathcott@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texans are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select, Choice, and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Brian Howell on Colorado, and now their coaching search. We'll also hear from Mike Heller on Wisconsin, looking for a new coach after Paul Chryst was fired for no reason other than the fact that they're falling behind. He feels that way, the AD. Because we'll show you in a minute his record and maybe a comparison, except that Paul Chryst was a pretty nice human being, and people let me know that when this comparison that I put up yesterday evening. Ross Dellinger, here's an interesting note. Last year, on this very week, Paul Chryst got a raise from Wisconsin.
Yeah, it is funny. I mean, I think they expected because he started like a house on fire, but since then, Graham Mertz, it's just been blah at quarterback for them. And when you look around, like who's winning in the Big Ten, it's usually the teams and who's winning anywhere, but who is competing for the Big Ten title? Who do you have to beat? You got to beat Ohio State. You got to have quarterback play that compete with Ohio State. There's such a huge gap between just that one position and everything else, and that one at Wisconsin. And then when you start looking at everything, how far are you behind the leading team? Wisconsin's starting to veer in the wrong direction, is where a couple years ago they'd closed the gap, but now it just doesn't appear that way.
Fired without cause. They just feel like they are about to slip into mediocrity. They were beaten at home by Washington State early. They lost to Ohio State by 31. Wisconsin was going to lose 2 to 3 or 4 games a year, but rarely would they get blown out by somebody. It reminds me of this next tweet, except different personalities. Bo Pelini at Nebraska was 67-27 when he was fired. Paul Chryst at Wisconsin, 67-26 yesterday when he was fired. Pelini, 39-17 in the conference. Chryst in the Big Ten, 43-18. Pelini won 4 bowl games. Chryst won 6. Paul Chryst they just feel like, especially when you lose to a former coach at Wisconsin and Brett Bielema, right? Mm-hmm. That didn't help. He got drilled by him. But also Pelini, of course, we know about his fiery personality where he was sometimes just a raving lunatic. But he also got fired because the defense stopped being good. And here in the case of Chryst, as Craig mentioned earlier, Wisconsin has to be able to pound the rock with who they recruit, and they can't do that right now. So there's a couple of comparisons there.
No, they throw out running backs and offensive linemen into the NFL left and right, and people you like. That like you can go all over the league, and you'll see Wisconsin guys in the running game, tight ends, like everybody, all over the place. And this year's team just doesn't look like they've got those dudes.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to this. I mean, you kind of hit on every point. Wisconsin made the decision that they made. They did it because Wisconsin's fallen off to the wayside if they don't do something now. So, yeah, I totally get it, even though, there's some level of surprise to it. But I think, we kind of hit on why they did what they did, and it makes sense.
And Braylon Allen, there were thoughts about him maybe being a Heisman candidate. He had a big game against Ohio State in a loss, 165 yards. 3 touchdowns against New Mexico State. 148 yards against Illinois State to open the season. He should, but had 2 carries for 8 yards against Illinois, a long of 3 in that loss to the Illini 34-10. Now, here's something you want. This is something I saw very early on Sunday. So USC beats Arizona State. This is from, now look at the Twitter handle here. UCLA Kings, right? This is a UCLA account. Number 4 on ASU football is my favorite player ever. As Caleb Williams came over to the sideline, he had a big game for them. And a player from Arizona State squirted him right in the face with a water bottle.
Yeah, UCLA King, I'm sure, really does like him. But come on, man.
It's the
What are
thing,
you doing?
UCLA Kings Halos. He's an LA guy, clearly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Angels and LA Kings and UCLA.
Yeah.
Is that enough? Okay, there are times when I miss the boat on outrage. I mean, I really do. There are times should that have been a penalty?
No.
I
mean, by the book, probably, but like I have no desire to stop down and like really argue about it. Like I thought it was a fun moment between 2 guys who seemed to not be bothered by it, and
in fact, Caleb was smiling.
Yeah, so it was totally harmless and fine. And if I remember that clip correctly, I think an official might even have caught a glimpse of it. Maybe I'm wrong on that, and I'm thinking of something else. But yeah, I thought it was much ado about nothing, really, and I think that guy was probably of the same mindset.
All right, when we come back, Carl Durrell is out at Colorado. Paul had a top 5 at the start of the year on those on the hot seat. Others did as well, and they're just getting checked off one at a time. How many of them have actually been able to maybe stay longer than we thought? But Brian Howe on Colorado, looking for a new head coach. He's next on 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac. They have a lot of great deals going on right now over at the dealership, and they are the people that you can count on for the life of your car, for great customer service as well. They are now in business for well over 20 years at this point, and throughout they've proven to Waco and surrounding communities of why they are the best bet, whether you're looking to buy new, pre-owned, whether you just get your car serviced, whether you're just looking, or whether you're intent on buying. They are the dealership to go to here in Central Texas. And right now the wait is over. They have trucks, they have SUVs, all on the lot. 2022 GMC Sierras, Acadias, Terrains, all arrived and waiting for you to test drive today. They also have Cadillac XT4 and XT5 SUVs available for a test drive, but inventory is going fast, so get over to the dealership now for the best selection. They also have GMC, I mentioned the Sierras. Those offer best-in-class towing, a strong steel bed, multi-pro tailgate, advanced collision avoidance, and a luxurious interior that includes massive touchscreens, 14 camera views, and premium comfort. So trucks are waiting for you to test drive now. Get on over to the dealership. And if the exact truck or SUV you're looking for is not on the lot, get on their inbound vehicle list, and you can cut in line for trucks that are in production but not quite in stock, or you can let them help you design the truck or SUV you want, and Richard Carr will have GMC prioritize it for you. So again, in business for over 20 years in Central Texas, Richard Carr has built a reputation as a people you can count on for your automotive needs, run by proud Waco's, proud Baylor Bears. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
Make a winning drive to Genco and refinance your vehicle. Every loan can skip monthly payments for 90 days with rates as low as 3.75% APR for 48 months. Right now is the time to make a play. At Genco, we save you money by helping you pay less for your car. Every loan scores no payments for 90 days. Then have a chance to win 3 more months of no payments. Apply online today for an additional discount of 0.15% off our already low rates. Subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. For more information, go to GencoFCU.org. Member NCUA.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, cause weight gain, and wreak havoc on your sexual desire and performance. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results, so if you're tired of being tired, I challenge you to man up and Google search Low T Waco or go online pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $150 a month, includes lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, follow-up visits compared to $395 a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T as board-certified physician consultations will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone available. Contact Petty Clinic Low T today. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, Petty Clinic Low T, helping men become the high-performance men they deserve to be. PettyClinicLowT.com or Google search Low T Waco.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Brian Howe, Boulder Daily Camera. Brian was one we had on back in the day when USC and UCLA and that story popped, and he was able to give us kind of a little inside look at what's going on with Colorado, but now under different circumstances. Carl Durrell is out. Brian Howell joins us. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, and David Smoak. And Brian, was this just a matter of time?
Yeah, it really was. I mean, the way this season was unfolding, it was hard to see this going any other direction than Carl Durrell being fired. And I thought it would have to be a disaster for him to lose his job this year, and it has been.
Brian, what is the key for a replacement? Are they looking for somebody with head coaching experience? Do they need someone young that can shoot life into the program? What is their overall, if I'm sending in my resume, what does it have to have on it?
The athletic director was asked that yesterday, and he said, I don't have a profile at this point, and he's kind of looking at everything. And the one good thing about Colorado in this position is they've got 2 months to make this choice. I mean, they're not going to name anybody until after the season. They have some time to look at it. Me personally, I would want to find somebody with head coach experience, somebody who's done it. You can find great coaches that have been coordinators and things like that, but I would want for Colorado someone that's proven they can do it as a head coach. And I think that they're probably going to look at a lot of those types of guys, but they've also shown a track record they've shown the willingness to hire guys that have been up and comers as coordinators as well.
Brian, do you think that the movement by some other schools already this early is kind of part of the reason why they decided to accelerate this, or was this a matter of even if every job was still intact, that they would still want to be out there early like they are right now?
Yeah, I would imagine they would still want to be out there. The way this season's gone, I mean, it really was kind of a point of no return, and that, you know, there could have been no other coaches fired, and I think that CU still probably would have done this the way things were going.
Brian, what's been the feeling among the fans, the alums, and the donors and boosters as far as after the news came out? Relief in any kind of way?
Yeah, I mean, most people felt like this should happen. They were ready to move on. There were a lot of fans that were ready to move on at the end of last year. A little too early, in my opinion, but they wanted to move on. So I think there's some relief, but there's also some, nervousness about, is this the right administration to get the next guy that's going to win here? And, the CU's got some challenges with that. And, the fact of the matter is, this is the same administration that hired Carl Durrell. So there's a lot of nervousness about whether they want to put their trust in these same guys hiring the next head coach.
Brian, I'm going to throw out a name, and you tell me why it wouldn't or wouldn't happen. Eric Bieniemy.
I think it could happen because he's one of the greats in CU history. I think that's probably the only reason why he's tied to that job, though. I like Eric. I think he was the offensive coordinator here in 2011 and 2012. I was covering the team, got along with him great. I really like him. I don't think he's a great fit, for being the head coach of the University of Colorado. I think that he's an NFL guy, and he's been out of the college game since he was let go by CU 10 years ago. So I think CU needs somebody that knows the college game.
Brian, is this Colorado wanting to hire somebody and go back to where they were in their glory days? I mean, where does Colorado kind of, in terms of the people who are running it, in terms of the alumni and fans, where do they see the direction of this program going ultimately compared to where they are now, where, obviously they're, we were talking about Colorado the other day. It's like, man, it's kind of an afterthought in so many ways because of where it got to. I'd imagine they want to be back to their winning ways, but to what level, what kind of commitment is there right now?
It's interesting that you say that because back when they fired Mike McIntyre at the end of the 2018 season, there was a lot of talk of those glory days. And, hey, we've won national championships here. They say championship, there was one. Right. But they said we've won here. We've had Heisman trophies. So they talk about the glory days. They're at the point now where yesterday the athletic director doesn't talk about the glory days. I mean, he was asked, what are the expectations here? And he mentioned things like, we want to be talked about on game day favorably. We want to be, winning and going to bowl games. And so I think that their expectations are more realistic now that it's not looking back at 1990. That was a long time ago. Yeah. And it's more of, hey, can we get to the point where we're going to bowl games? And, when ESPN's doing their previews, they're talking about Colorado as, maybe winning a game that day, talking about it favorably. So I think it's more realistic goals of like, let's just win and let's try to get to the postseason.
Mike Sanford, the new interim coach, or not new, but the interim coach, has been a head coach for a couple of years at Western Kentucky. He's been an offensive-minded guy most of his career, obviously right now at Colorado. You know much about him as far as, was he just the obvious choice and is just letting him run out the table?
Yeah, I actually thought it might have been Phil McGagan, the receivers coach, who was given the, he was just hired last winter, but in the spring, he was handed the title of assistant head coach. And so I thought it might be him. But Stanford makes sense because he has been a head coach, and he's got a strong personality, a guy that's going to represent the team well in front of the microphone. And so I think he's a good choice in that regard. I think that for the most part, I think it's really kind of running out the string of the season with him. But if he can turn things around and they win 4 games, which I don't know how they win, one at this point the way they're playing, but if they go 4-3 down the stretch, you have to give him a shot and look at him as a viable candidate.
Yeah. I kind of resent Brian saying that 1990 was that long ago. I mean, sure, we'd only had one George Bush in the White House, and cell phones were like huge and in a bag. And if you wanted to know any kind of information, you had to look it up and not just shout it out into your house. But it, can't have been that long ago.
When did the internet start? What was
prior to that, actually, but just barely. None of us all had it all at the same time. It was a
Yeah.
few years away at that point.
God, that is a long time ago. Believe me. You know what's interesting?
Yeah,
Colorado,
but I ask because it's like, what are expectations? Because there's a lot of unrealistic and there's realistic expectations, and so it's good to know that they're being a bit realistic about where they are and not acting like you said, like 1990 was 5 years ago at this point. But where do you see them as far as the kind of the outer parts of the game right now? Obviously, the Pac-12's in the midst of change in TV negotiations. They've been over there years now. There's the NIL portion of this, which is, something that everybody's adapting to. In those spaces, where do you see Colorado at the moment?
Yeah, obviously the conference thing is going to, sort itself out somehow, and, CU's kind of in a holding pattern there. I mean, the Pac-12 is in the middle of its negotiations for media rights, and CU's got to see how that plays out. And, there's a lot of confidence from CU and around the conference. I don't know about everywhere, but there's a lot of confidence around the conference that they're going to have a solid media rights deal. And I think CU would love to stay in the Pac-12 if that works out, and they're hoping that settles itself. As far as NIL, they've got some decent things going on, but they've got to fix that. I mean, they got to get better at it. They're being passed up by some of their peers on NIL who are doing some better things than CU is, and they need to make themselves more attractive to recruits. But I think also they've got to figure out a better way to keep guys. And I think that ought to be their focus, is more so how do you provide some NIL things that keeps guys in Boulder, as opposed to being kind of that farm team where, guys get good over a couple of years and then they go transfer to USC.
Yeah, I saw that in one of the stories. I think you may either retweeted it or part of what you were also doing about some of the things that just didn't go well. Defections and whatever, and that's happening in college football more than ever before. So anything at all, Brian, because when we first got to know you a little bit was back in July with USC and UCLA, it seemed like everything's kind of dormant. Every once in a while you'll see a shadow that's the Big Ten. There's always still that thought about what might happen with Brett Yormark in the Big 12, but anything at all, is that even part of the discussion in Colorado now?
As far as the Big 12?
Yeah. Oh, but it's just a future of wherever they're going to end up.
Yeah. And, really most of it is when I talk to people, they love the Pac-12 and they want to stay there. And I think that they're putting their trust in George Kliavkoff, the commissioner, to negotiate a really good media rights deal. And that's where they'd like to stay. I think that's why it's sort of that holding pattern. I mean, if it comes down that it's not that great of a deal and, the Pac-12 is not going to get as much as they thought, or if the Big Ten does come and take Oregon, Washington, things like that, now all of a sudden that changes the game. I think that, the Big 12 could be sort of a fallback option for a place like CU, but I think they would like to stay in the Pac-12 if possible.
Good luck with that, and I mean it, because we'd like to see these conferences, as far as I'm concerned, stick together as long as they possibly can, although we know that who knows what's simmering, because we probably don't know what's simmering. Thanks for your time, Brian. Appreciate it. Brian Howell covers Colorado. Appreciate his time from the Boulder Daily Camera. 4 o'clock, we'll have Ricky Thompson, Baylor sideline reporter. What did he see? What did he sense early, or maybe when did that game flip its heels, and his thoughts about Baylor and where they are? Tony Casillas at 4:30, among others. Mike Heller on Wisconsin. You in the chat room, and also the text line at 254-339-1122. This is 365 Sports. Baylor home game is gone, but they do have, of course, home games coming up, although that schedule starts to change. 7 games still to go, right? Is it 7? Still to go in the regular season. Some of those are home games at McLean Stadium. If you're looking for tailgate food, if you're looking for what you want to put on the smoker, the grill, whatever it might be, even whether you cook some of it at home or where you cook it outside in the parking lot around McLean Stadium, wherever your location is for a tailgate, tri-tip, brisket, chicken wings, sausage, they have what you need at Waco Custom Marketplace. Charcoal, they have pellet fuel as well, as far as what you need for what you ever use when it comes to smoking. It's Waco Custom Marketplace. Also cold beer, cold wine, cold soft drinks, bakery and butcher shop. And if you just want to make an order for what you have at home, what you cook at home during the week, you can call in the order and pick it up at Waco Custom Marketplace. They have an incredible selection of what you want when it comes to beef and what steak you like. It's Waco Custom Marketplace, your hometown grocery store at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgin Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. And BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Colgin Ford.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of health care while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of health care has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneerboys.com.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Toss to Reese, hit in the end zone, and he is going down. Kendall Daniels was in there first, and it's a safety for the Cowboys.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
It's 4 o'clock hour. Ricky Thompson, former Baylor receiver, Washington receiver, sideline reporter for Baylor, joins us to start the hour. as Oklahoma State wins 36-25. Baylor with the off week Thursday next week against the Mountaineers in Morgantown. Ricky, thank you. There were times early when Baylor had a chance to do something. There were a couple of plays later as well. What do you get the sense right now is happening with the running game? What are they missing right now in being that more physical and just kind of dictating the point of the game? What do you see right now?
Well, Smoak, I think it's a couple of things. I think, number one, you don't have Abram Smith back there. That was a guy that was 200-plus pounds, tough runner downhill, could run over people, and you miss that. There's no way around it. I think Richard Greaves is a really good running back. I think he's developed. This guy's a true freshman, remember. But he and Squirrel are just two small, structured running backs, and you can't get that power game. In other words, you're not going to get the extra yard or two after contact with those guys generally. And I think that makes a difference. And I think it reflects into your guys up front and their confidence. And I think it's obviously a reflection on the way the game's called from the offensive coordinator standpoint and the plays that are called based on that.
Ricky, there were a lot of, mistakes, little things that piled up. How much of that is youth on this team, inexperience, and how much of it was the veterans on this team also just not being ready in the moment?
Well, I think it's some of both. I think if you had to pick one more than the other, you would say youth. I think that was pretty clear that there was still some big eyes out there and not a real comfort level on their part, and maybe that affects too how a game's called with those young guys there. And remember, you've got a lot of experience on the lines of scrimmage on both sides, but your playmakers on both sides are really inexperienced, and that's really a detriment, or has been thus far, the inexperience at those skill positions. And I think it's shown. I think it has, and in spite of that, guys, the way that game was played Saturday, the Bears had every chance to win that game. And, in fact, they were within 8 driving when they get the interception with a tip ball off a receiver's hands. And you just can't make those kinds of mistakes. You've got to fix those things. You win that game last Saturday, and you're in the driver's seat.
Yeah, it was a giant missed opportunity. It really was. Ricky, when Gavin Holmes, and I know he wasn't the only one that had drops or whatever, but, I mean, he had obviously a couple plays in that game, not catching the football that were really costly when all was said and done. What do you do if you're Dallas Baker and Dave Aranda and Jeff Grimes and whoever talks to him, from the offensive staff? For a receiver, how do you get your kind of head back in the game and overcome that? Because he had the one catch, immediately right after that first drop, and you kind of felt like, okay, cool, he's back in the groove. And then he had, obviously another couple later on. But how do you address that, I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, the only way I've seen it addressed in the past, and I played out there, so I know a little bit about it, but I think if you're going to play him, which I think you have to, I think he's one of your key guys, you keep throwing it to him. And at West Virginia, I throw it to him on the first play of the game. You've got to overcome that type mentality. You've got to catch the ball. You've got to do it in critical situations. And I can tell you, nobody feels worse about those than Gavin. And one of them was a first down on a drive that probably ends up in points. The second one goes off for an interception that puts Oklahoma State in field goal position, which ends up really being the ball game when you go up by 11 at that point. So you make those two plays, you kick 2 balls into the end zone, and I think you've got a different score. And that's in spite of a lot of mistakes during that game. But you take those 4 plays away and you win the game.
Noah Rauschenberg has been fantastic with what he's done with kickoffs. It's almost like you just almost take it for granted. Up where we sit in the press box, we're higher, and I felt maybe kind of a swirling wind. The 2 returns were from the south end zone. Do you feel like Baylor was trying to pin Oklahoma State deep with their coverage, or do you feel like that the wind affected his kicking?
Smoak, I think it's got to be the wind because we've seen that kid, and it's generally not 3 or 4 yards deep in the end zone. It's generally out the back of the end zone. And I think if you watch those flags, it was misleading. They were blowing slightly. The flags on the goalpost weren't moving at all. I could feel a breeze down on the field. I think it had to have something to do with it. But I think, too, if you notice, he generally drives the ball, and both those kicks had some air under them. And I think with the air he put under the ball and the swirling wind, I think that's why those balls didn't go out.
Well, I don't know if this is, kind of defends your point here, Smokey, about the wind. Something happened to me that's never happened. We sat in those seats, or at least close to there, since the opening of McLean Stadium. That's where we sit in the press box. When the pyrotechnics went off at the beginning of the game, they blew onto me in the press box. Like there was
some of the
ash.
smoke.
Yeah, some of the ash did. And I thought, well, that's weird.
Yeah.
And then I didn't think anything of it until just now when you asked that question.
Yeah, and I do think it's swirled at times, but I do feel like it from where we are, which is near the goal line on the north end zone, up pretty high, it did seem to be a pretty good breeze, and some people disagree with me on the message board, but I wanted to get it from your perspective. Ricky Thompson with us, Baylor sideline reporter on 365 Sports. Craig?
Ricky, obviously, Shapen had the 2 picks. The one was, obviously a deflected pass, but the other one just kind of felt like he got baited into that one along the sidelines late. Overall, though, throws for well over 300 yards. What did you think of Blake Shapen and how he performed?
I thought Blake was fine. I think on that second interception, and I may be way off here, I think he may have been trying to pull the receiver back into a back shoulder type throw, and he didn't see the ball coming, which made it an easy interception, or he may have been baited. I'm not sure. But I just think otherwise we're still talking about a quarterback that really doesn't have a lot of experience. And I'm really liking what I'm seeing about Blake sitting back in the pocket with some patience. He didn't do that at BYU. I think these last games, he stands back there. He waits for the guy. And the blocking up front, too. You got to speak about that. But there were several times when I thought he sat back there and really found the second receiver for big plays. I think there's a couple of times when he missed open people. But considering the experience, I know we all know he's got the arm. I just think Blake's going to be fine. I think he's going to get better and better. I think he's playing okay now, and I don't think you'll see anything but improvement out of Blake.
As a wide receiver, go ahead, Paul.
Go ahead.
As a wide receiver, obviously they needed people to step up. We saw Presley make a play on the road against Iowa State, among others. But what are your thoughts about what Monterey Baldwin has done and what he did on Saturday?
Well, let's just go to one of those plays, and that was the 4th down touchdown catch. That was as good a throw and catch as you'll ever see. That was on tight coverage. Blake put it the only place he possibly could where Monterey could catch it and the defender couldn't get his hands on it. And then secondly, that was in a bit of a crowd. He caught that ball, and then he takes it to the house. Some of those things you saw on that play aren't coachable. And that's where difference makers come in. I think you've got to get it to him more and more. And I think as these other receivers see those plays made, it affects their game too. But I think that's one of the spots where we've been a little short is playmakers outside in these first few games. And those 2 deep balls to Monterey were game changers.
Ricky, they've got 10 days to get ready to do something that they have not done yet, which is win in Morgantown, West Virginia. Now, this is a West Virginia team that's, trying to find itself right now. What do they have to do to make sure they don't fall into a trap next Thursday in Morgantown?
Well, I think this loss Saturday will prevent any kind of trap because they know they have to win. It doesn't matter who they're playing. And just the fact you're going to a place you've never won. So I think the trap's out of it. I just think they're going to have to be able to handle another hostile road crowd at night in Morgantown. I promise you it'll be loud Thursday night or not. So I think they're going to have to overcome that. But I think the thing you tell these guys, you win this game, you're 4-2, you're 2-1 in league play. you're in the same spot you were last year with one loss to Oklahoma State, and a lot of games out there that you should win if you play your game. So they've got everything in front of them, and I do think we're back, guys, like the Iowa State game, to another key game on the road that they have to win.
Yeah, no doubt about that, Ricky. One of the things that I guess was surprising to me was just kind of the way the energy felt, and it was something that Aranda talked about as far as the beginning of the game and kind of that first half. And he attributes some of that to youth, but I don't know. Like I'm seeing the guys in the post game that are talking, and I'm seeing a lot of the players out there. There's a lot of veterans on this team. Now I realize they lost a lot of leaders, but did you get any sort of sense about a lack of energy, a lack of a buzz early on? And as a former player, like what do you kind of attribute that to, and how do you go about trying to correct that?
Well, yeah, I think everybody felt it. I think there's a fact that even Coach Aranda addressed it in the postgame, that really that intense atmosphere on our part wasn't there initially. And that's unacceptable. I think it was unacceptable to Aranda. It ought to be unacceptable to these players. You can't do that in any game, much less a game like Oklahoma State. You got to be ready to go, because I think we found out in this one that maybe you can lose one in the first half. We weren't in good shape going in at 16-3, and then you get the kickoff returned and you're down 23-3 just like that. And I think some of that was lack of intensity early. So I'm just guessing there'll be a big part of this next 10 days spent on intensity and coming out ready to play and not losing a game early just because you weren't ready to play.
Ricky, okay, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say on the road, that's even more important.
I think that for someone like Dave Aranda, who's so good, and maybe even we look at the way he reads people, players, whatever. All coaches have their unique part of being able to do that, some better than others. But I almost felt like in the post game with us, the media, after the game, it seemed like that bothered him a lot. That almost hurt him, that he may have misread his team throughout the week.
Well, I think so too. And I don't know if we were having some technical problems, so I did the post-game interview with the coach, and I can tell you that it bothered him. I think it was a combination of maybe him thinking a big part of that's on him, and a big part of it that he just missed it and didn't realize it. And with that, I'm going to be shocked if they don't come out with a buzz in Morgantown on Thursday night, a week from this coming Thursday. I don't think he lets that happen again.
They lost a game last year at about the same time in Stillwater to Oklahoma State, and they got beat up in that game, although it was a very winnable game, but they got beat up. They didn't lose, and then they, of course, had the disaster in Fort Worth. These are two losses early against two quality teams, two teams, one in the top 10, one that's in the top 15 or so. What is the message you think going forward, the leaders of this team? Because they still have a chance to pull themselves out of this, but they're also teetering on scratching and clawing to be a bowl team.
Well, I think the message from these guys like Dylan Doyle and the veterans that are out there, some of these linemen, Afu, whoever it may be, is you tell these guys, look, same place we were in last year, same position, one loss in the conference early, but we finished up winning all but one football game. We can do that again, or we can tank. And this next game is going to go a long way in determining which one of those happens. Either we lose this one, we're 1-2 in the league, 3-3. It could get ugly from there. So I think that's the message. And I think guys like Dylan can step up and prevent that from happening because, I mean, guys, it's right there. I mean, even these two games that they've lost were games that they didn't necessarily get beat up. They just screwed up. And there's a big difference. So there's a chance to win out. I think we've seen Oklahoma, man, they're struggling. Texas is okay. Kansas, 5-0, but they're beatable. I mean, Iowa State should have beat them last week, just didn't do it. Missed 3 kicks. Kansas State, they're okay, but they lose at home to Tulane. I mean, it's right there, guys. We just got to play football.
Thank you, Ricky. Appreciate your time. Ricky Thompson, Baylor sideline reporter, also former Baylor wide receiver with us, 365 Sports. There's not a game left on the schedule they can't win, although there are 4 of the 7 on the road. And there's not a game on the schedule that I just look at and say they'll win that game either. And again, that's if they win yesterday, then oh my God, they may run 6-1 the rest of the way. I don't know. But when I say I saw your kind of reaction, Craig, to scratching and clawing to be a bowl team, because right now there are no givens. And they could run the table, and yet again they could find themselves having to win some games on the road that won't be easy to do.
I mean, yeah, I get that. I get why you said that, but I'm thinking about it from a position of if that actually were to occur, that would be embarrassing. That would be totally unacceptable. I mean, totally unacceptable. I don't care how good the Big 12 is this year, and I think Mack Rhodes would say the same as well. And I'm not saying like Dave Aranda would be, I'm not going crazy, but just for those players, the seniors especially, that would be totally unacceptable to close your career like that. With all of the hype and anticipation you had coming into this year, if you were even in the vicinity of having that conversation, that's embarrassing. That's totally unacceptable and should be to those players because – like he said, and like we've been saying, look, don't want Oklahoma State fans to get it twisted. They played a great game, and they're a good team, and I'd have them number 1 in my power rankings for the conference right now, and won't blink in doing that. And that's who I'll have number 1 come Thursday whenever my article comes out. But there will be a shakeup elsewhere, obviously. Like a TCU is going to rise up pretty well. But, I mean, Baylor's still going to be there in the top half, and I think that they are better than their record indicates. I do think they played and lost to 2 pretty good teams, but they've in both those situations, had opportunities to win those games, and play a little sharper than you do. Now, granted, Oklahoma State loses a game this year. I'm sure they say, hey, if we played a little bit sharper, I mean, it's just kind of what you do. But when you look at those 2 games and you look at the mistakes that were made, they could have, should have, whatever, won that game, and they didn't. And so if they don't win a game again because of that, and don't win another game because of that, That's all on you. I mean, right now it's a gut check, look in the mirror kind of time for them to decide who they want to be, because you do let this kind of linger, and you do look up, and all of a sudden you got to win like your 4 out of your last 5 to make a bowl game, and that's just not anywhere close to where this team should be. That should not even be a thought, but it might be if they don't correct some of those mistakes.
No, I had an interesting DM on Twitter the other day from a guy who was at the game and said, man, do we really miss Tyquan Thornton? I think that you saw that they have maybe a ready-made replacement if he can be consistent. He was not good against Iowa State. He was really good against Monterey Baldwin for Tyquan Thornton. I think the bigger thing is, and Ricky mentioned it there, is that like getting those extra 2 yards on a pop when you're Abram Smith, that's affecting the confidence of the offensive line, because Abram Smith made up for, oops, I missed my guy. Oh, well, Abram just put him on his back.
He can do what you want any running back to do. He could run by you, he could run through you, and he could also break the arm tackles.
Yeah, and so they're missing that. I watched a lot of the like a condensed version of the game earlier today, going through, and that Richard Reese 4th and 1 looked so. I mean, it was like Oklahoma State was thinking about doing that same thing from the McPlay, but. If he's really that fast, he should have gotten there.
There's no reason why he should. Yeah, I mean, it was a great play. It was a great play. But
all his life, he's been able to bounce it outside and outrun somebody.
Yeah. But also this is
a great play by the
This is also being a true freshman where, all his life he's been able to do that. But guess what? Now you're at the level where all those guys at this level were the best. One of the best 3 players on the high school team, if not the best one.
I think what you would see, and again, you're talking about youth. He's been perhaps their best offensive player with Baldwin in that mix, Chapin or whatever. But it's one of those you take a jab your left foot in the ground and you move left. It's still going to be a collision, but you'll have the first down. The drive continues. He's always been able to bounce it outside, and he wasn't able to do that. He learns from that. That's part of the youth and experience of a young and very talented player. All right, when we come back, we'll have Tony Casillas, former Oklahoma All-American, College Football Hall of Famer, on what he thinks is going on with Oklahoma and Texas OU week and some memories. This is Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
PettyClinicLowT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, used to be, and you need to be. How does he do that? He will get you an appointment where you get your blood tested. He will get the results, look at all of your numbers, from PSA count all the way up to whatever your testosterone level is. And if it's lower than it needs to be or where it needs to be in that neighborhood, he will then put you in a program to increase your testosterone level so you can become and have better energy, better sex drive, perform better, and just feel better, and maybe sleep better and get rid of some of the body fat as well. PettyClinicLowT.com is located just off of 84. It's also online at PettyClinicLowT.com. Go left-hand corner, email, phone number, and tell them I sent you at PettyClinicLowT.com.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Did you know that Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness is a partner of the City of Waco? Did you know that we are open to the public? Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers day passes to the public for only $10 a day, and we offer money-saving memberships. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including bar, yoga, boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. There are free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, elliptical machines, and much more on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training available where you can be encouraged to grow. Sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, and kids club. 17 tennis courts, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Waco's premier experience where you can help your mind, body, and soul. Visit our website at wacotennis.com. Call us at 254-753-7675 or visit us next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at SicEm365.com.
Host of the Tony Casillas Show podcast, College Football Hall of Famer, former Oklahoma great, partnered with the Cowboys in Super Bowls as well, Tony Casillas on 365 Sports with Paul Craig and David Smoak. Tony, what do you think the mood is today in Norman?
Oh, first of all, thanks for having me, guys. It's always great to be on with the greatness of Waco, Texas. That's a great question. That's a great question. I think that I think a lot of people were somewhat shocked what happened in Fort Worth. I think that part of me kind of saw some vulnerability against Kansas State, but I know Oklahoma struggled with a quarterback that could scramble. They had some issues on their defense. Really kind of played soft at times, and then offensively there really wasn't that spark. But I think there's a lot of uncertainty. You don't know if your quarterback's probably going to be out this weekend because of concussion protocol, and so then you have to lean on some guys that have never played. So I think right now, I think they're just trying to get some mojo back, find some answers, and it's a quick turnaround. I know as a player you have a lot to go into game plan, but the one thing that's good about this week, it's Texas. So I know that emotions and everything that goes along with that can uplift you, but man, they got to fix it, and they need to fix it fast because Texas. We say I feel like we say it a lot here lately, but I think this year they're playing to a level that maybe we haven't seen, but in that game, who knows? But I know that's a long answer, but I think in the short version is let's find some identity, and we need to focus on the simpler things and fundamentals of the game.
A new coaching staff, 42 new players on the roster. This is not easy for anyone to do, no matter if you're Oklahoma or not. Is this part of this because they don't know how to work through adverse situations together because they're all still getting to know each other?
Yeah, I think when you got a new coach and Brent Venables, a new offensive defensive coordinator, you got different players that another coach brought in. I know there's some learning curves there. I think last week when they were trying to do kind of a 3-man front, 4-man front, I think they're out of sorts because really I just don't think you have the personnel to run that type of defense with 3 down. But I think there's some familiarity there. But I think that sometimes I think coaches have a tendency to get a little too fancy and try to dial up different calls. And I think you just got to go back to simplifying it, because if you're trying to force something that's not there with your personnel, then that's pretty much what's going to happen. You're not going to have the results, and honestly, you lose a lot of confidence in your players because they just don't. They're trying the best they can, but you're trying to put them in a situation where that doesn't work for them. So I think for me, I think for them especially is that they just need to make it simpler, make it basic. I think you can't play soft; you have to play aggressive. You can't have a lot of information swim in your head, and just kind of play yourself through it. And I think that's what Oklahoma has to do, is try to find that. And if they get that, I think they'll be more sound, and they won't be searching for answers to some of the unanswered questions.
Tony, there are answers that can be found, and there are some things that might have to wait until the offseason. But right now, when it comes to this defense, or if it's a non-defensive thing that sticks out overall, what is your biggest concern at the moment?
Well, I think that when you watch them against TCU, I think that they were a little soft in their alignment. I think TCU, they just got all over them. And then I think that the reactionary and what they needed to do to try to to adjust. Anytime you got a team that gets up on you like that, and then you lose your quarterback, and then there's this panic mode. I think that they were just trying too hard, and honestly, they may not have the personnel that they need. And right. I think this is going to happen with the transfer portal. You look at Kansas and Kansas State. Who would have thought 2 teams from Kansas would be leading the Big 12? Kansas is 5-0. I mean, that's a big story in the Big 12. And then you look at Texas, you look at Baylor, you look at Oklahoma. just haven't found it. So I think there's a lot of combination of things. But I think for me, I think this is going to be the way it's going to be. And especially when you have a coach that left and a lot of players left with them, sometimes it's kind of adapt to what you have when you have this philosophy when you get there. But I think that's there's no excuses. I mean, when you're Oklahoma, you're not supposed to get beat by TCU. They're not supposed to put a 100 on it. That's unheard of. So I think a lot to go is on the coaches and a lot the players especially. But ultimately, you look at these teams that are really good, that have 3 or 4 really good athletes, or 4 athletes. 1 or 2 is going to be from the transfer portal. So anyone can be competitive every Sunday. And I think Oklahoma's kind of found that out early in these last 2 games.
You mentioned that kind of brought up the fact it's Texas week, Texas OU, and we know the emotions there. But with the transfer portal the way it is now, both teams have brought in a bunch of new people. Will it have the same type of emotional edge that this series has always had?
Well, Smoak, yeah, I think it depends on what type of players you bring in. I know with Quentin Evers, I know you have Hudson Card, who is, you don't know who's going to be the quarterback this week, but I think what I heard is that Hudson Card was actually playing better in the spring. But when you're paying a guy $1 million, then he's going to play. But I think that's the way it is. That's going to be the norm in college football, because every team's going to bring different players in, but it just depends on which player adapts to the offensive, especially the quarterback. And I think it's the patience that you used to be able to have. I think that's going to be kind of lost in the transition part of it, or translation, because there's so many things are changing. And you know, those guys that you bring in, the quarterbacks especially, they're going to show up and they're going to play, and they're going to make, 2 or 3 different skill players here or there. They're going to adjust. But, maybe Oklahoma, I think that they're, they brought in Dylan Gabriel. But I've watched him play, and he may or may not be the guy that they thought he would be. But, you have to replace someone, especially after you leave someone like Caleb Williams.
Tony Casillas, former Oklahoma College Football Hall of Famer, current College Football Hall of Famer, former Cowboys and Falcons defensive lineman, with us on 365 Sports.
Tony, I know that the transfer portal did, they got rated in the transfer portal, but are you surprised at even still, outside of Marvin Mims and maybe a couple other guys, that they still didn't have that depth, some of those playmakers just sitting there waiting for their shot now that some of those guys were gone?
Well, I think that you kind of got to play through that. And I think when you're a new coach and you really don't know the guys that are already there, then you bring guys that you have familiarity with, and they know you know them. But still, you have to build somewhat through the players you already have there. And this transfer portal has just gotten crazy, where you got to reload like 10 or 12 players every year. Those guys got to be athletes. And I don't know. I just don't. Maybe they don't have the personnel. Maybe they're deep, like you mentioned, the depth of the defensive line. And I think our secondary's really struggled, and it could be a long day for us if we don't fix that, because TCU just exploited that, and that was coming off the Kansas State loss. And so I think you have to find players that are there, and you got to develop them. And obviously, guys you bring in, it's got to be a mixed bag. But 2 or 3 guys have really got to vault the other guys, and that's like your quarterback. It's like any skilled player. It's the same thing on defense. And I think Venables is noted for that. He's a defensive guy, but I think that if you're a Sooner fan, you just got to tap the brakes. They like winners. The sky's not falling, but after 2 losses like that, TCU putting 55 on it, I think a lot of people, their patience get a little thin.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. I mean, especially when you're living so good for so long, like Oklahoma has been year in and year out. Is there, not trying to get too far ahead here, Tony, but, just looking at kind of the instant reaction world we're in and seeing where they are now. And of course, there's the big SEC move in sometime in the next couple of years. On your part, is there any concern of like, oh man, are we biting off a bit more than we can chew? Or is it still just, hey, we're Oklahoma, we're going to compete no matter where we are, and we're going to be just fine?
Oh, absolutely. I think that was my biggest concern when they made that decision. I think that you're seeing these players. I think last week they had a defensive lineman flip on them to go to A&M, and I think that's just by way of just the deep pockets of A&M and does Oklahoma. Do they have enough money to pay these players? And yeah, I think it's something. It's going to be a big taste of reality playing these SEC teams, and you're struggling with Kansas State. You're struggling with all the teams in Big 12. Big 12 is a good conference, but if you want to go play big boy football, you want to make big boy money, this is going to be the growing pains. And I just very guarded cautiously against that, because that's something that be careful what you wish for. Yeah, the revenue stream's going to come in. The pockets are going to get filled at Oklahoma, but at what cost? And I maybe in a couple of years, maybe they can get through some of this. But teams like Oklahoma aren't supposed to go through these growing pains, and they lose, but not like they lost against TCU. And maybe that's a little overreaction, but when it becomes an SEC, that's really kind of the way that it's trending. SEC is a big boy football league, and I tell you, every week you got to be ready to roll your sleeves up, and you better get ready to get hit in the face, because they're going to bring it.
How ironic is it that during all this transition of whenever the heck they eventually do join the SEC, this week's got 4 games, and the one game that does not have a ranked team in the Big 12 is Texas and OU.
I saw that, and to me, I think that's it kind of loses its luster a little bit. I know as a player, I think a lot of people they may not believe this, but I know as a player, when you're playing for 1 and 2 and you're playing for something's on the line, yeah, it's a big football game, without a doubt. It's one of the best, I think, rivalry games in college football. But when you're out there and you're playing for something, 1 against 2, you're in the top 10, and there's a lot of things that you have, there's a lot at stake. And even for the fans, it's not anticlimactic, but it really, you kind of understand it. And you're playing at 11 a.m., that's the game that's been, which is a different story. But yeah, I think it really, it starts to register a little bit, because here you are, Oklahoma, and you're not even ranked. And so I think it's still got the luster of a tremendous rivalry game. But I know as a player, to me, it means a lot more when there's a lot more at stake. Yeah, those guys are going to go out there and play their ass off. I mean, it's OU versus Texas, OU. The fans and the alumni, yeah, we're going to talk smack, but it's hard to stick your chest out when both teams aren't even ranked.
Jeff Ward just put this up on our chat room. First time since 1998 that's happened.
Yeah, I saw that. And if you lose to a Kansas State team, you lose to a TCU team, and then you look at Texas getting beat by Tech. Look, I think that Texas too has a lot in this too, because Texas, yeah, I mean they are who they are. They are a very financially a humongous entity, but what drives them is their athletic program and going to the SEC, and for them to play so great against Alabama and get beat by Texas Tech. It's kind of taking that step back again. So, yeah, I think it's hard. Yeah, you're going to go to the game, and all week we're all OU alumni are going to be talking smack. But yeah, to not be ranked in the top 25 since 1998, that stings a little bit.
I have one Cowboys question before we're done, but go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, I just want to ask you, Tony. I mean, forget all of the, where the teams are right now. This is still OU Texas, like you said. There will be, thousands and thousands, going to the Cotton Bowl this weekend, and there will be millions watching at home. When you think of your time playing Texas, what is kind of the first thing that maybe comes into mind for you?
I would say an out-of-body experience, something that it's in a regular season game that you won't ever see until you have the opportunity or just to play in a championship game, and it's nuts. The ends, the 50-yard line from one side to the other is transitions from hatred to people loving you. And it's just crazy how the emotion in this game really takes over. I mean, look at the game last year. Texas was up by 28, and look what happened to them. The crowd got Oklahoma back in. Crazy things happened. And I think it's the best thing. It's crazy. The craziness happens in that game. And Texas is a 6-point favorite going in. Shoot, I wouldn't even worry about that because you can just you throw that out of the window because that doesn't apply to this game because it is crazy atmosphere.
Before you get to the Cowboys question, Paul, you were at 5 games. You were a player at Oklahoma. UT won twice, Oklahoma won twice. But the game that I always remember that might have been one of the more frustrating losses, or a tie, was the 84 game. Was that not when there was a pass interference call in the right corner of the end zone that just everybody, if you're an OU fan, or player, you lost your mind?
What's crazy is that is you get older, you have a propensity to maybe forget things, but you never forget games like that. That's kind of the ripping the scab off the wound. And, for me, that was a crazy game that when you go back and watch it, we should have won 3 times over. The goal line stand, and then Keith Stanberry intercepting the pass 3 yards in the end zone, and they called him out. But that's that game. I mean, Todd Dodge was the starting quarterback. It was just in those type of games. Look, I always tell kids. I said a lot of you guys may have the chance to go play in the NFL. You can get paid money in the NIL, but you won't ever get a chance of playing a game like that. If you happen to play in a national championship, go on to your career, but that game within itself, without those things on the line, whether you're going to go on and play for something that's more meaningful, it doesn't get any better than that. But yeah, just what you mentioned, a game like that, and they show it. They show all these old games, and it's not high definition, but it's high definition enough to see that Keith Stanberry intercepted that pass and we should have won, and it should have been a 15-15 tie game.
Yeah, I remember that very, very like it was yesterday. Paul?
Tony, the Cowboys are 3-1, due in large part because of their defense. Yesterday, they made Carson Wentz regret maybe ever deciding to play football as a profession, just getting after him that much. Just as someone who played the defensive line for that long, what's it like to be in games like that where you know that you are in the quarterback's head as soon as the whistle sounds?
Well, I think whenever you're scared of one player, and I really think that Micah Parsons is that ingredient. I've never had any, 2 guys playing together, Trayvon Diggs and Micah Parsons, to see how long they're going to play together. But there's so much ferocity. I think people, they give enough credit to Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy, they had that bad experience with Mike Nolan. That was a train wreck. Go out and hire Dan Quinn and just turn this defense around. And now you got these players just balling and having fun. And I don't care. Cooper Rush has been a tremendous backup guy. I don't think anyone has really expected this, but it's a lot. It has a lot to do with how great they're playing on defense, because no team, when they get behind and they have to throw the football right now by watching this Cowboys, they don't have a chance. And that's just because of different personnel, the depth, and guys that we haven't heard about, the Dante Fowlers, young guys like Sam Williams, Neville Gallimore, Bohan. I mean, there's all guys that are out there balling, because collectively there's been one player that's really kind of united that and really just kind of been the pulse of that team. And I think it's been amazing to go on this run with a guy that, you guys know this. You know how Cowboy fans are. It's a winning. If you're not winning, we don't got time for you. When I lost the first game of the season, the football sky was falling. Like, it's done. Dak's gone. And then Cooper Rush comes in there, and he just does exactly within himself, makes plays. But, man, the defense, I'll tell you what, every time I watch it, it just makes me feel like a proud father to watch a defense play like that. And, there's a test. These next 2 games, they got the Rams on the road, and they got the Eagles, so it's going to they're going to find out a lot about them. But, man, I tell you what, if they keep playing like this, they're going to have a chance to win a lot of games regardless if they have Cooper Rush or Dak Prescott.
Tony, as always, thank you. You still have the podcast, correct? Is that people can dial that up?
Yeah, just so you can, and also follow me on Instagram, TC Casillas, and then on Instagram, that's on Twitter. On Instagram, follow me there. I do a Tony's Take every Tuesday. It's a live interaction, comments, questions. So yeah, you can hit me up there.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it as always. Great insight, Tony Casillas, Hall of Famer, college football Hall of Famer, former Cowboys and Falcons, defensive lineman.
Yeah. One thing that I did not ask Tony there, but he had mentioned it on Twitter. I just didn't feel like it was the place to bring it up necessarily. But Gavin Escobar passing away last week.
He mentioned that. You're right.
He was the one who called Gavin Escobar's name. And I don't know if they had any relationship beyond that, but I saw him mention that on social media. So, that I'm sure was kind of a weird feeling, having been there and announced his name so many years ago, and then now to hear of his tragic passing. So RIP to Gavin Escobar. But, as far as the Oklahoma side of things, I don't think the sky is falling, man, but this is different territory, and this is you got to be really careful. They could get blown out by Texas this weekend.
Oh.
I mean, could really get destroyed, especially if Ewers is back. So, this is going to be really interesting how they are able to kind of, make the best recipe they can with the ingredients they got, because, you can't go in the transfer portal right now and go find some more defensive players. You can't go find some more playmaker. You can't go find a quarterback, although they're going to have walk-on tryouts to try as best they can. But they're stuck, man. They've got what they've got, and they've got to do the best they can with what they have. And it's going to be tough based on what we've seen so far.
If Dylan Gabriel is healthy and playing in this game, I would have a lot more confidence in them being able to make it into a shootout and, ride that wave. But man, I mean, this is.
I agree with both of you. I'm going to say something that may come back to haunt me. That's okay. Do y'all remember what happened to the big bully in the Big 12 in 2001?
Nebraska.
They got destroyed by Colorado, and it was a game in which it was almost like, and it was a different way, because that was physically beating up a team that was so proud about who they were physically. I don't know where Oklahoma goes from here. But I wonder if that game, in my opinion, had any kind of – it just seemed like, man, they could have just been completely just unclothed in that game.
They got embarrassed. I mean, they flat out got embarrassed. And, that's not something that happens all that often. I mean, there might be a moment or two where that's occurred. There's been some embarrassing losses, falling to a K-State team that you weren't expecting to. They've certainly been blown out before. I mean, I think of I'll always probably top of mind think of the USC national championship game where, there was all that hype, and then they go out and just get destroyed by Leinart and Bush and company. There's, Boise State was embarrassing, I get, but this is like you got
this was
whooped.
You getting your blank kicked.
You got whooped, and there's not really a sign that you're going to turn right around and automatically be better. It's not like, oh, well, Kyler Murray will bounce back, or, even Baker Mayfield. They have nothing even resembling that if Gabriel's hurt. And even with him, I don't know that he even really resembles those guys. All due respect. It's just not what it has been, and I think that's very clear. And to what extent, I think, is the scary part for Oklahoma fans, because is this a sign of things to come? Is this a sign of just, ironing things out in the meantime, and then by the end of the year, they're back on track? Is this a sign of just until they get into the offseason, they're going to probably get beat up a couple times? I don't know, and I don't think that they know, and I think that that's what the scary part is, because if you had to guess, even though nobody really knows, if you had to guess, I think everybody's guessing on the more negative side with this whole thing, and that's the terrifying part.
They have a team that scores a ton of points against a defense that just gave up 50-plus. Your quarterback is hurt. Texas is probably still angry from what happened last year in the second half when Caleb Williams took off his put on his Superman cape. And then you have Kansas following that game. And who knows what happens with the KU this weekend, but will be just a thought. You never know. They're 0-2 in a conference they have, for the most part, dominated with a handful of others, once or twice a team. 2 losses in the Big 12 already, and both times they were beaten up with a bunch of yards
their defense was gutted.
I definitely think that, with Gabriel, they're a contender, and he's good enough to make them a contender. But without him, that exposes a heck of a lot. And it's not like he completely covered up every wart either. He's good enough to win them some games, and he's got the familiarity with Lebby and all of that jazz. But he even had his moments before getting hurt. So yeah, it's gonna be something else in Dallas this weekend. I'm sure UT is licking their chops. I'm sure we'll hear, I don't know if UT will announce do you think yours is coming back this week, if you had to guess?
Yeah, I think so.
I would think so, right? So I wonder how they do that if in fact he does. And if he doesn't, then that does make it interesting, but you're certainly still taking Hudson Card over whoever Oklahoma trots out. So
I would think they could blow out Oklahoma with
Hudson Card. Yeah, absolutely. But there's just if Ewers comes back as well, then my gosh, this could really just momentum-wise go crazy.
Put this in perspective. There was the 2014 Oklahoma team where Baylor went into Norman and embarrassed them with Bryce Petty and company. Remember?
Yeah.
That team was 5-4 in the conference. Before that, they were 6-3 in 2011. The last time, those are two examples. Of course, they had the terrible run before Stoops. Stoops was 5-3 in the conference his first year. Before that, they were just getting beat up for about a 4 to 5 year stretch. It's just uncommon territory for them.
When's the last time they were less than 8-4?
In what? The season?
In the season.
The 14 team was 8-5. 2014 team was 8-5. That's the one where when Baylor beat them up and Stoops knew it and he couldn't do anything about it. They were 5-4 in the Big 12. And that was TCU and Baylor, those two dynamic teams. And that was the year Oklahoma took a beating as well.
The good news for them is they can go out and buy new players in the offseason, basically. But, did they make the right decision at coach? I think that's what people are already starting to wonder. And, look, it's too early to make an indictment of any sort, one way or the other, on Brent Venables. We got to let this thing breathe and play out a lot more. But, yeah, it's kind of a scary time right now. And there's all this big talk about the SEC and running things and all of that. And it's like, okay, well, it's been pretty good the last 20 years. That's not normal, and now we're seeing where it's, going outside of what they've been used to.
When we come back, Mike Heller covers Wisconsin. He also covers the Packers. They had a knockdown, drag-out game with the Patriots yesterday, but his thoughts about Paul Chryst and Wisconsin with a coaching search. This is 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Right now, the service department, Eric Upton, Gary Reynolds, and Lacey Kauser. General Sales Manager David Gray and his sales team, including Tamara Jones, Roderick Chapman, Gerald Harris, and many other great sales associates. In fact, my buddy AJ. They've been in business for 12-plus years. This is a staff that's award-winning. And right now, some of the specials they have, the Ram Power Days, you'll find a great selection, amazing deals, competitive financing. So why not shop right now at Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat? The 2022 Ram trucks are designed to be durable, functional, stylish, and a premium truck winning year after year the numerous awards as well. The 2022 Dodge Charger and Challenger, you can bring the style, incredible deal you deserve. They have opportunities, discounts, and more. Offers, ask them when you get there. Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
We're fighting hard at Pickup Outfitters in our battle to end truck nudity. But it's not just about putting an outfit on a naked truck, it's about making sure you have the very best customer service. So we offer the Pickup Outfitters Lifetime Installation Guarantee. Over time, sometimes your outfit needs a little tune-up, maybe some tightening, adjusting, whatever. If you outfitted your truck at Pickup Outfitters, that tune-up is absolutely no charge for the remainder of the time you own that truck. We also offer free warranty assistance. If for any reason you need to use your warranty, you just bring it back to us and we take care of it. It just makes sense. I mean, operating without a promise like that would be like offering customer service in the nude. And if you've seen our staff, trust me, you don't want that. So do your part to end truck nudity by outfitting your truck, Jeep, SUV, or van at Pickup Outfitters, 220 Lake Air Drive in Waco, where we promise to serve you fully clothed. Check out our website, createacommotion.com.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Want more updates during the day? Follow 365 Sports YT on Twitter.
We have had Mike Heller on before. Great at what he does, 97.3 The Game. Milwaukee, Fox Sports also 1070 The Game in Madison for the entire state of Wisconsin. Talk show host. Mike, thanks for your time on 365 Sports with Paul Craig. I'm David Smoak. Did the firing of Paul Chryst surprise you?
Absolutely. Yeah, without doubt. I thought it would be something that they would give consideration to with the body of work when the season would be complete. To do it 5 games into the season was a big surprise, I think, for all of us.
Mike, are things different now that Barry Alvarez isn't the AD? Do you think that they will look for a different type of coach who doesn't necessarily have a Barry Alvarez line, or is this all in hoping that Jim Leonhard gets it straightened out so they can just keep that guy?
I think that Jim Leonhard is going to be the coach. I don't think this is an audition. I know that the interim tag is the official tag. It's a public university, so they're going to have to post the job and go through a process. But I don't believe for a moment that Jim Leonhard or that the next coach at Wisconsin is going to be anybody other than Jim Leonhard. I do think that there are viable candidates out there on the national scene. Dave Doran, who's at North Carolina State, the former Badger assistant. Certainly Lance Leipold at Kansas is going to be a name that everybody's talking about. He's got deep, deep Wisconsin roots. Those guys, their names will likely come up, but I do think Jim Leonhard is going to be next.
Mike, as you said, you were surprised when you heard the news, but having had a little bit of time to marinate on it, does it make a bit more sense? And when you look at just the firing itself, why does it make sense to do it right now?
Yeah, I having a day, about 24 hours almost exactly to sit on this. I think the only reason it makes sense is that this is the current standard operating procedure in Division I college, in FBS college football. There have been now 5, unless I'm missing one, 5 FBS Power 5 programs that have removed their head coach less than 5 weeks into the season. Colorado and Wisconsin, the latest, but Nebraska and Georgia Tech and Arizona State on that list. I think that the pressures of the financial side of college football mean that this has to be done. In other words, I guess if this would have happened 2 years ago, it wouldn't have happened, right? 2 years ago, I don't think this happened at any of those programs. And by the way, none of those programs that have removed their coaches have been because of scandal, right? These have all been mainly because of wins and losses. And of those other 5 or the other 4 programs outside of Wisconsin, I don't think people realize that Wisconsin in the last 3 years under Paul Chryst, they're 15-10. They're 15-10. He's getting fired after his first 5 years of 10-3, 11-3, 13-1, 8-5, 10-4, and then 4-3 in the COVID year, 9-4 a year ago, and 2-3 right now. He's being fired now, I think, based on maybe some appetite for Jim Leonard to go someplace else by other programs, and just the business of college football having evolved so rapidly and so extremely.
Yeah, the only one that has a little possible dirt in the firing is Herm Edwards because of all the some of that, but nothing like you said, a scandal.
But that was also bad football. Yeah. Yeah.
Steve Peterson, when he fired Frank Solich, made this quote: "I refuse to let the program gravitate into mediocrity. We won't surrender the Big 12 to Oklahoma and Texas. We know Solich had put together a hell of a record, and Oklahoma and Texas at the time were really good." Is there any concern that that could be the case here?
Yeah, I think, I'll give you another Nebraska example. When they fired Bo Pelini, right? I think Sean Eichhorst said it's not good enough. And since then, they have been much worse than they were under Bo Pelini or Frank Solich. So I think it is a careful what you wish for scenario. I think Jim Leonard will be good here. And I do think that I don't think they would have done this right now if Jim Leonard was not on the staff. So I think that they feel comfortable and confident that Jim Leonard, who's never been a head coach, that Jim Leonard can be the guy, the next here, came from here, played here, cut his teeth here, came back and got a job from Paul Chryst before he had ever coached at all. And a year later, he was the defensive coordinator, and they've been among the nation's best defenses for 7 years running. Up until this year, I think he's going to be the guy.
Mike Heller with us on Wisconsin firing Paul Chryst here on 365 Sports.
It's probably not this year because you have the same coordinators and everything, but do you expect to see him, particularly on offense, where they're not who they used to be? Do they need to be somebody different on offense? Do you expect him to maybe change schemes a little bit, or does Wisconsin have to win the way they've always won?
No, I don't. I think that is the conventional wisdom is that Wisconsin has to win the way that Barry Alvarez won. I don't think they can win that way anymore. I think they have to have a quarterback that is multi-dimensional, a quarterback that can run and throw. They've tried to have quarterbacks that can throw, and they haven't been good enough to have that. And I do think that they're going to change a little bit of what they do offensively. They just let me paint the little picture here. Wisconsin is not filled with 4- and 5-star recruits at the wide receiver and defensive back position. They've got to get those players from other places. But what they do have here is a bunch of big, strong offensive linemen that occupy a lot of space in the National Football League. And they need to continue to get those young men who become really big young men and play on Sundays later on. They need to keep getting those. You can't lose sight of your identity of being an offensive line university, but you've got to be more diverse in what you do at the skill positions, not just at the running back, but at the receiver and absolutely at the quarterback position. The best quarterback the program ever had was 1 year with Russell Wilson. They have to be more diverse in what they do from the quarterback position.
Well, they need to be able to draft off that, right, Mike? You know, Russell Wilson make it seem cool. Of course, he's having a rough year, but also they've got a quarterback down the road who's adopted them as his favorite program. He didn't even talk about Cal anymore, right?
No, I mean, Aaron is, he doesn't talk about Cal anymore. And everybody's looking for that guy, right? I think Lance Leipold has one of those guys at Kansas right now that can beat you with his legs and his arms. Everybody's looking for it. They're rare. They're hard to come by. Wisconsin needs somebody of that ilk. Let me take you back to one other point that I made earlier, talking about the patience that is college football. I'm going to give you a little blind sample set. In 2000, Wisconsin went 9-4. In 01, they went 5-7. In 02, they went 8-6, and then 7-6. In those years, they were 13-19 in the Big Ten. They went to the Sun Bowl, to No Bowl, to the Alamo Bowl, and the Music City Bowl. Barry Alvarez is a Hall of Famer. Would Barry Alvarez, in today's coaching world, would he survive that 4-year run?
No.
Yeah. No, he wouldn't. It's an incredible example. There are some Hall of Fame coaches that had their rocky times, but ended up coaching in the same place for 25 years or so, and they had to dig through what was, at least under the standard, thought to be not quite enough. Here's a stat. You mentioned the coaching today. Last year, there were like 15 coaches in Division I or FBS football. Total buyouts were $94.4 million, from Orgeron to Mullen, Patterson, et cetera. This year already, 4 coaches, 5, including Christ, have already totaled $46.5 million in buyout money.
Yeah, and somebody answer, you guys probably talked about it when it happened, but somebody answer this question, how you justify at Nebraska firing a coach with a buyout that was going to go down by $8 million if you waited 3 weeks.
I think it was so toxic after the loss to Georgia Southern, the way that they had
what else could happen?
Because look who they are. They got blown out by Oklahoma. They found a way to beat Indiana. They're no better. I just feel like they wanted to get a jump start, and that's why we're seeing these early coaching changes.
Yeah, and it's entirely possible that is the reason why Wisconsin made the decision yesterday. I don't have anything on this, but I can speculate and wonder as to whether other programs were getting close to Jim Leonhard.
Yep.
Because Jim has been offered, you may not know this, because it's not national news all the time, but Jim Leonhard was offered the defensive coordinator's job for the Green Bay Packers a year and a half ago and said no to stay here. They've been sniffing around from other Power 5 conference schools for Jim Leonhard, and I wonder if there wasn't some smoke going on there. See how I tied that into the show? If there wasn't a little smoke going on there, that Wisconsin said, okay, if we're going to do this at the end of the year, we better do it now before we miss an opportunity at our own guy.
Yeah, it isn't the exact example, but Lincoln Riley in Oklahoma, when he took over for Bob Stoops, they just kind of like, let's go get this done right now. We feel like we got the guy. Let's, let Bob have his dignity. They didn't fire him, but, it was basically like, hey, we're keeping Lincoln. And, I kind of get the same vibe with Jim Leonhard, especially with Nebraska, being one of those jobs that he's potentially been tied to.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so one more thing on the NFL, and Paul brought up Aaron Rodgers. Gutty, tough, maybe more so than most thought, but your thoughts about the Packers? They always have a little hickey early on in here. They are. They're 3-1.
Yeah, that opening loss at Minnesota, and yesterday getting an overtime win. I work on the Packers radio network too on the pregame show. So I was at Lambeau yesterday when this news broke in Madison. But Aaron said post-game last night that winning this way is not sustainable. They need to be more versatile in what they do in the passing game. and what the offense is doing. Shoot, Aaron Rodgers yesterday had a quarterback rating of 10. I believe it was 10 in the first half. Now, I finished close to 90, but it was his worst half in his NFL career as far as just the numbers are concerned. I believe he had 4 completed passes in the first half. This team has to find a way to transition more quickly out of the Devontae Adams era, and Aaron has to lead that. Romeo Doubs, who played at Nevada, is going to be really good. Christian Watson, who was an early draft choice out of North Dakota State, the kid is very talented, but they're going to have to be better in the passing game, and Aaron's trust and those wide receivers earning his trust for this team to get where they want to get. That being said, they're going to get to 6-1. They play the Giants this week, then they're in London. They're home with the Jets, and then they play Washington. So they're going to get to 6-1, and I think the game after that is against Buffalo. So it gets awfully interesting with Buffalo and Philadelphia and Dallas on the schedule later on.
Well, that sounds juicy. Thanks a lot, Mike. Appreciate your time. Thanks for jumping on with us after a long weekend. That's Mike Heller. He covers the Packers and also Wisconsin with some of his thoughts about the change of Paul Chryst as head coach.
I mean, just reading the tea leaves, it certainly does feel like the Jim Leonhard thing was in mind when they made this move. And, that was a name that was thrown out there in particular for Nebraska when that job opened up. So, yeah, that would make a lot of sense if you feel like you've already got the guy. Because if you remember, Bob Stoops, that was a very abrupt retirement from what I recall. I mean, I don't remember there being too many indications that he was stepping aside. And all of a sudden it was like, boom, he's out of here. But, on his own terms, and Lincoln Riley is the guy now. And, obviously they didn't know at the time what that would ultimately turn into, but I could see that kind of being, we'll stay in-house, and we've kind of already had this planned out because we think this next dude's going to be pretty good. But unfortunately, in this scenario, they had to, make a firing instead with Paul Chryst. But, yeah, I mean, that's an interesting program. They're going to have that Big Ten money, and they're super consistent, and I'm very curious to see how their entry into the whole carousel, even if they're hiring in-house, how that kind of changes things for the others already in there, and how much more this pushes others who haven't jumped in already to eventually jump in here pretty soon. Because what, are you going to wait another 7-8 weeks if you're some of these other schools? I mean, I guess what are you really gaining now jumping in with all these other teams? But I don't know.
Okay, well, when Nebraska pulled the trigger, was they the first one to do it? They tried to jump ahead of everybody? Now there's 5 teams in the same room.
Right, so does it even matter to jump in at this point? Does that make that much of a difference? Or do you need to do it as soon as possible, because if you don't, then you're going to be the 10th school in line that's just now getting their ducks in a row. I don't know. But, obviously Colorado finally bit the bullet. We'll see, is Louisville and Satterfield getting close? I don't know where we are in some of these others. Obviously, South Florida's got to be getting close. I mean, they have to be. It's just not good there. But, yeah, outside of that, I don't know. This one was surprising. This one I didn't have, on the list of, that might be happening soon at all.
No,
so that was
I would
really
have put
surprising.
Paul Chryst on the list with, Jimbo Fisher and guys like that who are in no I would have thought until yesterday that they were in no real danger, other than he might have those meetings with the, hey, those kind of meetings. But, let's tighten it up here before you move on. But, this one was out of the blue.
Brandon Katz in the chat room. Chris linked his future to Mertz.
Yeah.
Wisconsin has been disappointing now for several years, and you have to be careful if you don't make that move at the right time. And Leonhard is only 39 years old and not an offensive mind. He's guaranteed nothing, but a guy that's very popular in Wisconsin. I
know it didn't help when Nakia Watson's running against them as Washington State's getting a big win a couple weeks back, and he was there at Wisconsin. And I don't know, recall the details of why he ended up transferring, but they don't run the football well. They don't get great quarterback play. I mean, it's just, I guess from that standpoint, it was time for a change. But still, of the ones we were expecting and the ones that are quite predictable, quite frankly, this was not among those.
A note about the AP Top 25 poll in the next segment. Also, we have the greatest graphic ever put up, other surprise. Emery's unbelievable what he does, about 365 Sports that cracked us all up, and a couple of other notes as well in college football, and this is 365 Sports. Ideal MRI in the Central Texas marketplace, just off of I-35 in the southern part of Waco. Ideal MRI is
a place that can help you find out what hurts so much, whether it's in your shoulder, your knee, your back, your abdomen, your foot, wherever it is, and also save you a ton of money. How much? A lot. The average MRIs are like $1,100. Sometimes you could get charged much more than that. If the average is $1,100, you could imagine what the higher part might be. I remember one time having an MRI done, and all of a sudden it just caught me off guard. It's like $1,750. I was like, what? And it hurt. Worse than what was the pain of having the MRI. Ideal MRI will not do that to you. They will find what hurts, ligament, muscle, whatever might be, where it shouldn't be, or why it's not together, or broken, or torn, or shredded, or even whatever. Ideal MRI, $497 every single time, and maybe less. And sometimes it will be less. $497 compared to the average of $1,100, and it's right here. People have driven in from Houston, Austin, elsewhere to come have an MRI here. It's worth it because of the money that you save from an MRI elsewhere. IdealMRI.com.
During Ram Power Days at Allen Samuels, our great selection of new cars and trucks come with amazing deals and competitive financing that makes you ask, why shop anywhere else? The new 2022 Ram trucks are designed to be durable, functional, and stylish. These legendary, award-winning trucks give you that first-class feel, luxurious leather trim seating options, exceptional legroom and storage, plus surround view camera options you'd expect from a premium truck. Come see our selection today or browse online at AllenSamuelsDCJ.com.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and 2-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
It's a toss behind him. It is Reese, and Reese dives in. Touchdown, Baylor.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Tom Albers, staying in touch with you and your money through these difficult and changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, the Big 12 did announce today the games, not this weekend, but the games the following weekend. Baylor, West Virginia in Morgantown's a Thursday night game, 6 o'clock Central. Kansas at Oklahoma will be 11 o'clock. Iowa State, Texas, 11 o'clock. Oklahoma State at TCU, which is getting to what could be really juicy, is a 2:30 game. So that's not this weekend, but the following weekend.
Oklahoma. I saw somebody lamenting. I can't remember who it was, but somebody's lamenting that with their loss now they're going to be back to playing basically 11 a.m. every week because I don't know if y'all remember they had that stretch of like a million 11 a.m. games in a row. But already back to 11 a.m.
All right, something that cracked all of us up. I'm not sure how many of you saw it, how many of you even follow Twitter, but we have a great fan. And we appreciate him. TKYUOFL put up on Twitter. Remember the story last week about how Fox Sports put up the note about how many touchdowns were scored by conferences? And in some cases, some conferences had 4 teams more. And the reaction to that of like, why did you even put that up? Especially when you look at the average of how many touchdowns per game, whatever, in each conference. It was just kind of thrown up there. So he put this up there. While we're out here creating meaningless graphics, and included Paul, Craig, 365, all of us, me, we're number one in the country.
Yeah.
Compared to the two big networks that cover college football.
Yeah, when we made that true, and look, we could add characters to it if we put Sikkim on front of it. So
Sikkim 365
we could keep doing that.
So I reached out to him. His name's Troy on Twitter, but his Twitter handle is that. We appreciate you and the support.
Yeah, Troy, I think you put more effort into that than the folks at Fox did with some of their graphics, so I definitely appreciate that. And, yeah, you can make a graphic just about anything, and appreciate you for thinking of us.
People remember Randy Clemens, longtime offensive line coach. He was with Art Briles for most of his career, eventually was at Florida State. Then he was at Ole Miss. Now he's at North Texas. Here's a picture from Saturday night's game. Taylor Bryan, their athletic communications director, sent me this. From left to right in that picture, Troy Baker, Cam Kaufhold, Randy Clements, the University of North Texas offensive line coach, is in the middle in the green. Mo Porter, Spencer Drango, and Jason Smith, former number 2 overall pick in the NFL draft. All those guys played offensive line under Coach Clements while at Baylor. So wanted to thank Taylor for sharing that picture with us. Also, there's one other one. What's the next one we have? Jarrett Dagey. Remember him?
Mm-hmm.
From Max Olson.
Remember
yesterday.
him, West Virginia fans?
Yeah. Jarrett Dagey transfers from Western Kentucky after he was at West Virginia, after losing the quarterback battle. Tonight, this was Saturday night, Dagey throws 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter and leads Troy to a 34-27 win over Western Kentucky.
Yeah, I mean, there's part of me that loves this, and there's part of me that also think it kind of sucks that the fact that, you know why he left Western Kentucky. He lost the quarterback battle. He transferred there. He was there for like 3.5 months, and then he lost the job in spring, and he decided to transfer. And so it's like, part of me wants to congratulate you. Yeah, you beat your old team and really stuck it to them, but all they did was just name the other guy the starting quarterback, and you bolted. So how I don't know.
I know. It's just a little bit.
But yeah, it was a measure of revenge for Jarrett Dagey, I guess, and he didn't play a lot in that game. It was if I'm remembering correctly, he came in, what was it, late third quarter? Is that right? But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a cool measure of revenge, but kind of weird too, because it's like you just lost the job. They weren't, mean to you or, anything like that. But it was nice retribution, I'm sure.
All right, one note that I noticed this week in the Associated Press poll. Out of the top 25 teams, there's so much chaos right now, especially from the midsection up, backwards in college football, with some of these incredibly nice wins for teams that are winning, that haven't. the smaller schools, the FCS schools. Out of the 25 teams in this week's Associated Press poll, off the top, Paul, don't look. You're looking now. How many teams were unranked prior to the week? 7. 7 new teams entered the poll, which goes to show you how chaotic everything might be.
Yeah, there is parity in college football, but not enough at the top that would have taken it to get this 12-team playoff a couple years ago. I think that was one of the things they would say is like, I could scream to the hilltops. There's parity in college football, but there's 4 teams that kind of live above it. But from those 4 teams down, there really is. Because, I mean, look at Wisconsin. You're not too far away from being a team that's 14 or 13-1 to a team that's firing their coach. That's how college football works right now. There's movement. It's just it hasn't really hit the upper echelon yet. But this is the reason we should have a 12-team playoff.
I think it's hit Clemson. I'd say really was it Bama, Ohio State, Georgia?
Yeah.
The unbeatables, so to speak.
And Missouri will say, hey.
Missouri could have won that game. They very well could have. They had every opportunity to win that game.
Everybody does have a bad day, and sometimes
I've noticed lately that whenever Georgia's, not blowing somebody out, it's like, oh, well, they were intentionally not trying is what I've seen an actual reporter report like as of a couple of weeks ago. I'm not sure what he said about this week's game. I guess that was Kirby just, again, trying to do everything possible to make that as hard as possible. I mean, I can believe you like making it hard on yourself to some extent a couple weeks ago, but like that gets silly. That's just being the biggest homer imaginable. But yeah, I mean, it's outside of like those top 3 that was maybe 4 when Clemson was really at the height of their superpowers. There is that pretty concrete ceiling that doesn't allow for just full blown craziness. But everywhere else, we're seeing it all throughout, the Big 12. I think the ACC's totally up for grabs. The SEC is still commandeered by a couple of teams, but then again, like how interesting could Tennessee make it potentially, or how interesting could, somebody else potentially make it? I don't know. I mean, it's going to be hard to kind of break that ceiling, but, Michigan proved last year they can get Ohio State. Can they do it this year? I don't know. But yeah, there's 3 super solid teams. And then there's a bunch of just who the hell really knows. I don't know how else to really put it other than that. And that's fun, I think.
I think you could make an argument that the Big 12 and the ACC have that little Spider-Man meme might be going on right now.
Yeah.
To the ACC, I don't know,
Pac-12,
Pac-12. The ACC has Clemson that like maybe could separate, but they weren't head and shoulders above NC State the other night. They played a really good game at home. Clemson, NC State, Wake Forest, and Florida State are all going to play each other close. Now, one of them might wind up losing all 4 of those games or all 3 of those matchups, but they're all going to play each other close. Wake Forest and Clemson played an overtime game the week before. NC State and Clemson played a really good game the other night at Death Valley. Wake Forest and Florida State played a good one in Tallahassee. Those are all going to play each other out over the time. So, yeah, they're really good. The Big 12, I think that if you're not 100% locked in, somebody can just jump up and pop you in the Big 12 any week. And the Pac-12, like while USC is the highest ranked team any week right now, they're not by any means invincible.
Man, I watched them the other night, and Caleb Williams really is special. Like he's a special talent, but he got really lazy because they were just having their way. He kept going to Jordan Addison, and he just threw the laziest pick that was. It was like he thought that he thought that they were untouchable for a moment, and that it didn't matter. They could basically just get away with whatever they wanted to get away with. So he just threw this floater over to Addison that got picked off. They kind of they lost their focus there. But when they were dialed in, you see why there's the whole USC is back and all of that. But we're about to see. I mean, they're going to play Washington State this weekend. They still got to play Utah here in the next couple of weeks. UCLA here in a month or two, or in between a month and 2 over the next few weeks. That'll be an interesting test for them as well. But yeah, USC looks good. They do look very, very explosive on offense, especially, but they're not unbeatable. So yeah, I think the Pac is kind of a question mark between 2 or 3 teams right now.
Missouri had Georgia. They had them in trouble. I just Googled, what is Missouri's record against the number 1 ranked team in the country? And most people don't have very good records against the number 1 ranked team in the country. There's a reason they were ranked number 1. Never forget the 97 team that gave up the kick 6 to Nebraska, who eventually won the national title. There's been other games. This is a story from 2018 that against top-ranked teams, they were and like 13. Now, I couldn't find anything else other than that. They have been so close, and they just, for some reason, seem to be the school that has been very close to having that win, and they had Georgia in trouble. It did not work out.
I think the parity is good. I think parity keeps you interested. And, for all the talk about, well, we can't expand the playoff, there will be too many blowouts. It's like, well, maybe if there's a bit more parity, then we won't be so concerned about that. I still think that's a silly argument to not have more opportunities for teams, but that's a whole nother conversation. But, yeah, I mean, there's but even some of the superpowers that I just mentioned, even they have shown their weaknesses at times. I think with Georgia, that was a very fortunate scenario for them to walk out of there, because that would have been something else, man, had Mizzou pulled that off. But, yeah, I like that there's a little bit more uncertainty across the country right now.
On the text line, Raymond asked this question a couple of hours ago, and I responded to him. What's up, guys? Hey, man, I think Coach Aranda should implement somewhat of an up-tempo offensive game the way things are looking in the Big 12. Look at Kansas, TCU, Oklahoma State. They just beat us and What about Jeff Lebby at Oklahoma? Texas Tech lost, although there's no question Kitley's had a huge influence on what they're doing at Texas Tech. But be careful to jump into that, well, this looks more fun or whatever. Baylor had that for a long, long time and incredibly successful, but they were never 12-2. They never were as good as they were and ranked as high at the end of the year as they were last year with a team that was complementary with what not really was up-tempo. I'm not saying that that's not fun to watch, and sometimes the Big 12's influence always was like up tempo, and then it started changing. Maybe it's going back to that more across the conference with the new coaching hires, but you got to find out what's best for how you play the game, and complementary at work last year for Baylor. Not so far this year with their 2 losses. All right, I want to say hi to Steven Snook. He's an incredible, loyal viewer of what we do on 365 Sports. He said, hey, by the way, what Mike Heller said earlier in the day, he thought Luke Fickell, if there was a job that he might look at outside of Cincinnati, that would make sense. And then Mike blew holes in that. But I want to send our prayers to Steve. His father, we've told you about him. He's battled Parkinson, has been diagnosed with cancer, never smoked a day in his life, has lung cancer. He and mom are in assisted living. Nurses 24 hours a day looking at the possibility of even hospice. And I wanted to tell Steve we were going to share that with you, the audience. So think about Steve Snook and his parents right now, thanks to the family of 365 Sports. We're back in a moment.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, a hidden gem. They're available on DoorDash now. So if you're watching the game, don't want to leave, well, you can contact them on DoorDash, or you can go at halftime, swing by, get to the drive-thru window. I guarantee you'll probably be back before the game starts again, or if you are, it's just because you maybe live a little further away. Really quick, really efficient, really fantastic. Best selection of Texas whiskeys that there are. Well, it's Balcones, Devil's River, Garrison Brothers, TX. They've got them all at Riverbend Liquor and Wine, all the varieties, great stuff there, and the best selection of craft beer around. It's fall, so that roster rotates, and there's some good pumpkin brews out if you're into that, or good Oktoberfest brews if you're into that. Great customer service, the drive-thru window, great promotions. You see them all the time on Instagram. That's what Riverbend Liquor and Wine does. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street. Find out more on Instagram.
The wait is over. Richard Carr GMC has the trucks. 2022 GMC Sierras have hit the lot, and they're waiting for you. Sierra trucks offer best-in-class towing, strong steel beds, multi-pro tailgates, and advanced features that make driving a Sierra second to none. Trucks are waiting for you to test drive now. So call now, log in now, or get here now and drive your next truck today at Richard Carr.
Richard Carr, they have the truck for you.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Salsa drap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Looking for a great job with great pay and awesome benefits? Genco FCU is hiring. As a longtime Waco employer, Genco focuses on what matters most in our employees' lives, like pay incentives, bonuses, benefits, 401k plans, paid time off, advancement opportunities, medical, prescription, dental, and vision insurance, as well as short and long-term disability. Come join our incredible team today and make Genco your career that will work for you. Apply at gencofcu.org or at any branch location.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
First and goal. He's found 5 different targets. He's going to hand it off. It's Pollard, and he's across for the Dallas touchdown.
It's time for our weekly segment with David Hellman of FoxSports.com.
All right, we just were told David's not available. He does work on the West Coast, and he is a part of Fox Sports and covering the NFL and the Cowboys, so that's out. And so that's fine. We will look at the chat room. Also, the text line. We just read one from Raymond in Waco at 254-339-1122. One reminder, tonight at 10:30 on the CW channel. We'll have sports tonight. What we do here during the afternoon every night, weeknight at 10:30, what are the special segments of what we do, topics, discussion at 10:30 on the CW channel.
Can I follow up on Raymond's real quick about opening up and going to a more spread offense? I think that's the one thing about the wide open offenses is sometimes fans can see other teams doing them and like, oh, why don't we do that? That looks so much fun. It's about your personnel. It's about what fits you. It's about what you're going to recruit to. It's about what works. So don't just see everybody else doing it and think it's going to fall in line and work for you, because the door swings both ways. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't.
For one, I don't think with their personnel it really makes a difference right now.
Yeah.
And two, then you're going to, hurt your defense in some ways. And I think that's basically your backbone. So that's why I would say that's not a great idea right now. And I don't think that they run without a lack of tempo at all times. I think they definitely run tempo when they see fit. It's just not the generalized terms of tempo means you score 60 a game. And tempo means that every receiver has 100 yards and every quarterback throws for 4. No, like there's tempo in Baylor's offense. It's just not always tempo driven. And I see no problem with what they're doing. I just see a major problem in their execution. And I see a major problem in just not having the dogs offensively that they've been accustomed to having at wide receiver and running back. And that's a work in progress. If they get that sorted out and get a little bit more of an edge to this offensive line, I know that's big if, but that's really what's missing. That's not, a tempo thing at all.
We have mentioned TCU and Oklahoma. Steve, Frog fan, just sent us a text about he heard us talk about TCU, the offense that just riddled Oklahoma, but their defense also was special. Even before Gabriel went out, Oklahoma had 355 yards of offense, 27 minutes of time of possession. Third down efficiency, OU was 6 of 18. They couldn't extend drives, and they couldn't get TCU off the field because TCU was 7 of 14. 668 yards for TCU. But Steve was mentioning 45 seconds or so, you guys talked about Duggan. His play was loud and okay. It was heard and okay. But what about the Frogs' defense all game long? It's okay that you have the coverage you have. I appreciate it. I'm disappointed you guys did not talk about TCU more than 45 seconds. I'll be honest with you. Straight up, without Paul and Craig knowing anything I'm about to say. Mondays, we could go 6 hours. And we try to hit little bits and pieces of everything we can early on in the show. And yes, there's going to be times. And TCU deserves an incredible amount of that talk, as does Kansas, as does Kansas State. And there are times when one team just you get lost in the shuffle. It's not because, and I know, Steve, you're a great listener of us, what we do. It's not because of a lack of respect as well. So thank you for the text as well. 254, oh, yes, it's Blow You Sucks week. 424 and Oklahoma still sucks. You wonder if this is the week that Texas gets to take out a lot of frustration from the last 10 or 12 years.
If Texas doesn't win this game, that is going to be a LOL moment because they better win this game this week. I don't see how they don't based on what we just saw from Oklahoma and based on Gabriel's injury. But, my gosh, yeah, I would expect a Texas win, but if they don't get it here, then whoo, buddy, that is going to be fascinating to see how that might have happened or how that would have happened and to see the response to that because I think everybody's waiting for this just to be a Texas slam dunk at this point. And the only reason you're not is because you think that the rivalry aspect of this will somehow, shore up Oklahoma's defense and they'll play with some pride or whatever. But besides that, there's nothing to see to where we think Oklahoma's going to go in there and win this game on Saturday. Hard to imagine given the most recent examples.
Which will be because we have said this before about Texas. When you about think that they're done, then they will rise up during a game in which you don't think they can win, and then go back and lose to somebody that they shouldn't. Nathan, a 3-minute discussion. Brigham Young, Notre Dame, go.
I think this one is going to be really interesting. Notre Dame's starting to find itself a little bit, but BYU is ahead of them. BYU has a better quarterback than Notre Dame does, although they opened it up and scored a bunch of points against North Carolina a couple weeks ago. It's in Vegas. Like I said last week, one group's fans will have a lot more fun in that town based on the availability of things that they will do. But yeah, I think it's going to be a good game. But I think I'm leaning BYU just because I think they're better right at this moment.
It was good to see BYU eventually pull away the other night, but Notre Dame's going to have a couple of weeks to prepare. I like the Irish here. I think BYU's a heck of a team, but I'm just not as high on them as I was immediately following the Baylor win. But I still think that they're a very good team. Obviously, they're right there in the top 15-ish range. So I think this is a game they're capable of winning. I think that having the neutral site will be interesting. But I am leaning Irish, and I can get into more of that later on this week as to why. But just early impressions in 4 minutes or whatever, I like Notre Dame in this spot. Although I will agree, Jaron Hall's a better quarterback than what Notre Dame has and all of that. It was good to see, was it Romney that came back the other night? So that's good news. But, yeah, I don't know why. I just have a feeling for the Irish here.
Note that, Paul, you brought up earlier that we were off the air when it happened, but Tillman Fertitta, who helps with a lot of things at the University of Houston.
Formerly he's the Board of Regent Chair.
Yes, and he's also got a ton of money that helps what they're doing right now.
Informally, he owns it.
His support behind University of Houston head coach Dana Holgorsen after the loss this past week to Tulsa.
Oh, that's great. Showing of support never results in a firing shortly thereafter, ever.
Especially when the guy that you could easily go to and say, can you pay this whole buyout over a couple of years? $13.2 million is a lot of money, but it's not for Tillman Fertitta. And I don't mean to dog the University of Houston, but Tillman Fertitta's the dude. So he's what to Houston, what T. Boone Pickens was to Oklahoma State, and still continues to be posthumously. So,
okay, Big 12 announces a public.
Well, hold on, I want to talk about that. That's fine that he got the vote of confidence. Some people will view that as negative. But, I mean, that is probably a positive in this very moment for Dana Holgorsen. I mean, obviously it certainly beats the alternative of him not saying anything or saying something bad. So that's good that they're, sticking together. But I'm very curious as to, like I asked last week, what the temperature in the room is right now in regards to Dana Holgorsen, because it just does not feel like it's going in a very good direction. And I see a lot of Houston fans who are just kind of over it at this point. As we've obviously seen already, buyouts don't mean really a whole lot if you're just determined to go ahead and get something done. But for Tita at least throwing that out there is, hopefully give Dana a little bit of room to breathe and, maybe have a little time to sort of get it together. But yeah, it's a very tense situation. It feels like from all the way here, in Waco, looking at H-Town.
From the 405 with all the youth at skill positions, might it have been best to keep Gary Bohannon another year? I fully understand why we didn't, but hindsight might prove otherwise.
Yeah, I've seen some people bring up Gary like whenever something goes bad, and I just think that that's kind of dishonest. I think that that's just, something goes wrong, let's blame the quarterback. And that wasn't all on the quarterback on Saturday. It was far from it, actually. If you want to just look at 2 interceptions, one of which was not Blake Shapen's fault by any means, and say like, oh, well, if Gary would have been in there, Gary's not throwing that touchdown pass to Monterey Baldwin, y'all. Like, I don't know who you think he is, but he is not throwing that over-the-shoulder touchdown pass to Monterey Baldwin
I'm not
with
that one.
1,000 attempts.
The 4th down one. Remember?
Any of them.
Yeah,
he's not throwing those balls. I mean, the 4th and catch and run,
4th and 5
barely over the
run.
defender. That was kind of a dicey throw, actually, but it was perfect for the situation. But yeah, either one of those throws, Gary Bohannon's not making those. I mean, I understand from a running standpoint that Gary gives you that running ability. So there you could say that he would be an improvement over Shapen. But outside of that, I don't see how in any way, shape, or form he's better than Blake Shapen.
Well, look, and
he doesn't play special teams, which is how you got beat on Saturday. So
I also and I know this is not all Gary's fault, but if he is the rising tide that's supposed to lift the untalented boats, the inexperienced boats, why is the USF still straight? No. My point being, I know it's not all him.
You're talking about there are no other boats around him.
Okay, but the point of that question was, because they don't have an experience, Gary Bohannon would make them all better. Well, he's not, and he doesn't necessarily. So that is a flawed way to look at it.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm just answering
the right
that
decision
question.
Was made based on, but we have not, on a consistent basis. Now, Brigham Young and obviously Oklahoma State are really good. But I got the impression when Blake Shapen took the job and won the job that this offense would be much more effective. But when we heard that, you lost Abram Smith, Tyquan Thornton, R.J. Sneed transferred, and Ebner. I mean, maybe at some point that starts to click. The off week might help him with that. But you're right. With all the youth at skill positions, might it have been best to keep Gary Bohannon another year? I fully understand why we didn't, but hindsight might prove otherwise.
Well, here's the other thing is, I don't know what the plan is as quarterback after this year. I mean, Austin Novosad will be coming in, and, I'm sure he'll make it a great competition with Blake Shapen. But, Gary only has so much eligibility left, too. And if you feel like Blake's the guy and you got another 3-4 years with him, then, I mean, that just makes more sense to me rather than, okay, let's have one more year of Gary and basically just do what we did and run it back. But they didn't want to run it back. They knew that they had to open it up because they didn't have all the personnel that they used to have. And that, with Blake's arm, one of the things missing last year was Gary being able to effectively connect on, deep balls and things like that. So it's just stylistically, they wanted to go a different direction, and Blake's better for that style. But yeah, I see the appeal of having Gary in the run game. But outside of that, I don't know really what he does that's better than anything Blake Shapen can do.
8-1-3, and then a couple more college football nuggets in the top 5. From the 8-1-3, I think Gary would have worked out if he had stayed at Baylor. I just think Jeff Scott isn't the right coach for USF, and it looks like he's limiting him here as well. All right, now some college football notes. Kent State had a 240-yard rusher, Marquez Cooper, and a 240-yard receiver in Dante Cephas in its overtime victory against Ohio. The Golden Flashes are the first team in FBS history to have in the same game someone run and also a separate player catch for 240 yards or more in a game, which I can see that. That's one game, which is one of the two, is a huge number.
Usually if somebody runs for 240 yards in a game, it's
You're
pretty
not
much all
throwing
you've been
the ball.
doing. So
Clemson, Paul, earned its 37th consecutive win at home, tying Florida State's record from 1995 to 2001 for the longest streak in ACC history.
I was at the one that they lost.
Who'd they lose to? Maryland.
Maryland's a good team this year.
Well, they lost. That was the Ralph Friedgen year, and I remember Chris Ricks threw a ball on the end zone to a guy who they wound up moving to defensive back the next to B.J. Ward, and he dropped it, and the game was over. And everybody just sat around waiting for like the next play because it didn't make sense. They'd be like, okay, well, he dropped that one.
Yeah.
Go out there again. And then you're looking like, oh, wait, no, that's not going to happen. But yeah, Clemson at Death Valley has made that a ridiculous home field advantage.
You thought that would be one they could get?
I thought that NC State could get them, and I do think that Death Valley got NC State a little bit towards the end. But then look,
so did you text Tim Brando and get mad at him?
Yeah, I know. It's all he sold me. But DJ Uiagalelei he's looking like he's supposed to.
He's playing better.
Max, he is absolutely.
He's definitely the best quarterback they have.
He looks calm. TCU quarterback Max Duggan became just the second player over the last 15 years with a 60-yard touchdown pass and a 60-yard rushing touchdown in the first quarter of a game. The last one to do it, Lamar Jackson. In 2016, he did it twice.
That's going back to the Gary thing for a second. On Saturday, what would they have done differently? Just run Gary in addition to their running backs?
I guess so.
Was Oklahoma State going to not
Gary
play defense all of a sudden?
Young game might have been more of a fit just for that game.
I think there's certain games he might be more of a fit. I just don't think when Oklahoma State's shutting down the run, I don't think him trying to run is going to suddenly open everything up to where you're hitting passes. And again, certainly not hitting the ones that Shapen hit on. But yeah, I understand where that's coming from.
Finally, Frank Harris, UTSA school record for the second consecutive week, passing for 414 yards in a win against Middle Tennessee State, who had just beaten Miami. In his first 5 games, he's done this twice. That's pretty impressive. No, excuse me. He had 400 yards against UTSA. The first to do it, he has now recorded 1,724 yards in the first 5 games, having a huge start to the year.
You mean against Middle Tennessee?
Yeah, against Middle Tennessee State.
Well,
Kansas.
They came back down to earth, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Kansas 5-0, as we know, ranked in the top 25. Game day, first time they've been 5-0 since 2009. A couple of years after they had that dynamic team in 2007. All right, you ready? Paul Catalina's top 5 is next.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. And BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Tom Albers, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If your financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Tom Albers, 4301 Lakeshore Drive, 254-776-7605. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select Choice and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 555.
Top 5 fits for Wisconsin, although I think we know where they're leaning after hearing from Mike Heller earlier. But if they don't, and the #1 guy's on the list anyway, but number 5, they don't go with the interim coach. Dave Clawson at Wake Forest. If you want a sea change in the way that they do things, Wake Forest offense wide open. Dave Clawson's done a great job there. Getting a quarterback like Sam Hartman, who, believe me, will get a graduation present from me when he's done from Wake Forest. He is really, really good and really efficient. And watching him play was one of the things you're like, well, I mean, he's one of those guys that's so efficient and so good that sometimes the defense looks like they're in position. He makes a really great play. And you're like, well, what are you going to do? And Dave Clawson's responsible for that. And I think, I don't know if he's going to be at Wake Forest forever. He's got a good situation there. He can keep building this. But, you know, it's hard to find Sam Hartmans, even if you're anybody, to find Sam Hartmans.
What's his record against FSU in his career?
It's pretty damn good. So maybe, you know, it might be time to look for a bigger spot than Wake Forest.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if Wisconsin could have him and, well, I mean, they could, I guess, in theory. But if they had their eyes set elsewhere, then yes, I think he would be a hire that would make a lot of sense. He's doing some good things with the Demon Deacons. And, you know, if they can keep him around there, it'd be really cool to see what he could keep building up. But, yeah, that'd be a good choice.
A MAC name getting a lot of play for a lot of jobs, and especially Big Ten jobs. Sean Lewis, the young coach at Kent State. Again, this might be the one that would maybe fit him, but I think there might be a couple other Big Ten jobs open. Indiana just lost to Nebraska. I think maybe Tom Allen's seat might have just gotten
They
more.
stink, man.
Yeah,
Indiana's a bad team.
You know what? I'm psycho. You know, he is like a level, I think, above me.
Yeah. So
Tom Allen?
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe that's not, Wisconsin's not the fit, but Sean Lewis is getting some, especially Big Ten talk because he's there at Kent State, which is in Ohio.
Yeah, I don't know a ton about him. I know Kent State's a good program. So, yeah, sure. Sorry, I don't have a lot to add here.
Number 3, and this is the one that maybe Nebraska needs to consider, considering they've let the last 2 North Dakota State coaches go to other places. But Matt Entz, 41-5, 2 national titles at North Dakota State. He is probably going to get hired by a Power 5 school in this cycle. I don't know if it's Colorado or Nebraska or whoever. There might be other, might be Auburn. Who knows what will happen with Matt Entz? But he's at his point at North Dakota State where it's time to jump to the next level.
Craig Bowles, former Nebraska coach, not a head coach, but an assistant coach, goes to North Dakota and has this amazing run, and they don't look at him. I don't even know if they ever really talked.
Went to Wyoming.
Went to Wyoming. He's okay.
Yeah. But if he had gone to
Coach Chris Kleiman, excuse me.
But if they had gone right from Solich to Craig Bowl, maybe there wouldn't have been such a drastic
yes, I agree.
change. It wouldn't have been.
Because they play similar styles, although, again, North Dakota State, what a dynasty.
Yeah. So there was one they missed. Number 2, Lance Leipold, won 3 national titles. It was, in Wisconsin.
Whitewater?
Yeah. And so he knows how to build programs. I mean, this is... For Kansas fans, this is kind of the nightmare scenario where the 2 jobs you would not want to both open at once for this guy are both open, Nebraska and Wisconsin. But because of what Wisconsin has done, I think you might be able to take them off the board and just worry about the Cornhuskers on this one.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing this whole thing on Wisconsin, and it's likely that they've already got the dude. But, Lance Leipold, I mean, the coaching openings aren't done just yet. I mean, there's others that could potentially join the fray, and based on what we've seen so far, odds are they'd probably be interested in Lance Leipold. So kind of wait and see on who else may, abruptly come open. But certainly that's the part that sucks if you're a Kansas fan is you're, enjoying the ride, this big weekend coming up, but you kind of also know, like, this could be the last run with Lance Leipold, or, everybody's going to be talking about not him and what you're doing, but what he may be doing somewhere else in the near future. And I know he's downplayed it as best he can, but that's just not going to go away because he's suddenly, without trying to, become, the guy in this entire coaching carousel already. And that's not going to probably change given the characters in play here.
Even if you have a coach that's successful, maybe even young or whatever, you never know when that glitter or that shine comes off. He will always probably be involved in being able to go somewhere else. And with all due respect to Iowa State, is Matt Campbell's name being tossed around as much now?
No, it's because of this guy. I do. I think it's because of this guy. I think he's kind of taken his place. And number 1, the guy they've already hired is the interim coach. Jim Leonhard has been turning jobs down to stay at Wisconsin. This is clearly a job he really wants, and it's his now. It's, to me, and especially hearing from Mike Heller, confirm that that's who they really want to go with. I think the bigger question for Jim Leonhard going forward is, do you win some games down the stretch so that you can solidify your spot as the head coach? And what changes will you make scheme-wise and recruiting-wise that will turn Wisconsin into the next decade?
He's well, and Mike Heller all but hired him, right?
Yeah. So there you go. But, yeah, I think Jim Leonhard's the dude.
Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think he's the dude.
Yeah, no, I think that he's pretty clearly the guy based on what Mike Heller said and based on what other reports were saying. I think that he makes a ton of sense. And that's, I guess, what we're just all supposed to believe. Unless they got some super secret candidate that they're just not referring to in any way. I mean, it seems pretty straightforward that this is an audition. Or basically just, hey, this is your job. Prove it that it's your job. And so if Jim Leonhard can do that, sounds like we'll probably hear him as the guy sooner rather than later. But a long way to go on the schedule. So let's see what happens here. But very interesting that this job opened up and already seems to have been filled sooner than the others potentially, although not officially, which is very interesting. But you talked about Dave Clawson earlier and Sam Hartman. That is a special combination right now, and I can see where he could get some buzz. He's been at Wake for a long time, but with what they're doing, won 11 games last year, and we'll see this year where they end up. But they're
fun. 9 or 10 this year at least.
No, absolutely. They're already halfway there. Yeah. So Sam Hartman is a special player and a difference maker for them. So yeah, I hope that like them and like Leipold with Kansas and You just hope they can enjoy their seasons and not get all sidetracked by the carousel talk, because we've seen that. We know how that goes, and it's not a lot of fun, especially when you're having a good run like Wake is, or Kansas is. So, yeah, hopefully that can stay the course despite all of this other outside talk.
Levi Caraway, Emery Winter, Jack McKenzie, Jacob Wilson, Garrett Ross, such an incredible group that we have here at 365 Sports. All of them are just basically doing something that just allows us to tell you and help communicate what we have every single day, while it's happening, before it's happening, and also when it's happening. Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak. Don't forget, 10:30 tonight, CW Channel Sports Tonight. I'm David Smoak. Good night. This is 365 Sports.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost